Okay.
All right. No introduction needed. We'll just get straight into it.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm in a different sort of place in terms of employment since I saw you last time.
Yep.
So
That's just
during sort of lockdown, I rediscovered my passion for wine.
wine.
Yeah.
Yes, I used to have a passion for wine,
Okay. Yeah.
but I stopped drinking about 7.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't had
But
a
I
drink?
enjoyed it back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a funny one, eh? Like alcohol, it can be quite destructive.
Can be.
And
Like most things.
yeah. But I think in life, everything in moderation is the most important key. And it's quite funny because now that I'm working in the wine industry,
You must be learning a lot too, yeah?
I'm learning a lot, but I'm drinking less.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Maybe a bit more selective, do you think?
I think so.
Which is good. That's cool.
I think like I've made a sort of conscious decision that I don't want to drink during the week.
Yeah.
So no drinking on a school night.
Yeah.
And then sort of Friday, Saturday, maybe occasionally on a Sunday I'll have a drink. But yeah, it's a discovery of a whole lot of new things that I just knew about wine, and now I'm learning about sort of countries of origin. Italy. I did a training session yesterday on Chianti wines.
Okay.
A
A lot of local, maybe?
Yeah. The training's more on the international wines, so sort of French, Italian, Spanish, and then through doing this training, like I want to go to these countries, man.
Yeah,
I've never been to Europe before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So-
you would really appreciate it then after doing these studies, you know, and just being there, smelling it, and just witnessing it.
Yeah. It's wine is just a crazy sort of industry, man. There's so much to learn. My best friend's brother was recently over from New Zealand, and he's just been promoted to the director of this international architecture firm of the New Zealand part. And so I took a bottle of French champagne round to my best friend's house, and he's just got a new spa pool.
All right.
So knock on the front door. The front door's open. We rock in there, bro. Everyone's in the spa pool. And they'd already had a couple of bottles of champagne already.
Right. So you can imagine that.
It was a big night. But yeah, so he told me of a story. There's like a Chinese billionaire. I think he did some sort of architecture work for in New Zealand, and he was invited round to this guy's place, and they ended up sharing a bottle of wine. He sent me a photo of the bottle that they had, $19,500, bro.
Oh,
for
one bottle,
1982, like a French Bordeaux, and this is wine. It's like, you can have like the cheapest bottle I think that we sell for the company that I work for is like $12.99, or actually $9.99 is the cheapest bottle, and we sell everything up to I think $27,000. For a bottle of French
27.
champagne. So we just sell the whole spectrum.
cases.
Oh, it's crazy, man. And I get to connect with the whole spectrum of society in this job, and this is the thing that I really love about the job is that I'm speaking to old age pensioners who literally they're surviving on a pension. And so they might have an extra $100 left over after they've paid all their expenses, and they just want sort of a $15 bottle of wine or something like that. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I'm speaking to heavy hitting people who literally they don't even think twice about spending money. There was a guy, he kind of lives somewhere in the country. Must have done pretty well for himself, and when I rang him, he was in a pool. It's like a hot day. This is 2 or 3 months ago, and there's a bottle of French champagne that we sell, which consequently I ended up buying 2 bottles because he said it was really good. He's just like, oh yeah, I'll just have half a dozen bottle of those. It's like $150 bottle of champagne. I just have like 6 of them. He doesn't even think twice about it.
Just like a 6-pack.
Yeah, and then there's another Shiraz that we're selling. Normally retails for $180, selling it for like $40. He's like, oh yeah, I'll have two dozen of that as well. And so that's like, over $1,000. And just
without
like that,
thinking, yeah.
Without thinking, bro. Like these people, they don't even have to think twice about the money that they've got. So I'm speaking to, the whole spectrum of society. Caleb Ralph, you heard of him? The rugby player?
Yeah.
So he came, we get all these client cards and all of these customers who are in our database, and I'm finding all these famous people, bro. They keep coming up. And Caleb Ralph was one of the guys who just came up recently, and he lives up in Queensland now. And, I'm not too sure what he does, but he likes his Pinot. Found out he likes his Pinot,
okay.
and I'm speaking to. There was a guy who was very high in the New South Wales Police Force, and back in I think it was the 80s or the late 70s, they had like a sort of summit. And all these important people from around the world came to meet, and his responsibility was to look after the Indian Prime Minister. And
how far back?
I think it was like late 70s, early 80s, around there. And there was a hotel bombing in Sydney, and he was standing right next to the skip bin where the bomb was, 10 minutes before it went off. And then during the heat of the moment, so his principal responsibility on that day was to look after the Indian Prime Minister. And when the bomb went off, all the plans go out the window, and you just do whatever you need to do in the moment. And he ended up escorting Prince Charles and I think Lady Diana, and he was describing like driving. It was raining that day apparently, and they were driving at like 180 kilometres an hour, like through the city out to a secure location. And just the way that he described
with the Royals.
With the Royals, yeah.
Jeez.
And like as a Kiwi who moved to Melbourne 14 years ago, like, I wasn't even aware this even happened.
Yeah, me neither.
It was like a history lesson for me. And
that's a pretty big deal. Like you think about it, eh?
Yeah. And these are the kind of interesting people that I get to sort of connect with on a daily basis. That's
awesome.
I never know who I'm going to speak to on every day. I've got sort of select clients that I speak to every month. Really good people, man. Like awesome. There's this whole guy called George, who every single month he buys 24 bottles of Sauvignon Blanc. Loves the Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc, loves it. And he's just a nice guy. Like, I think he lives in Mount Macedon, and I feel like I'm talking to Lindsay Fox. You know Lindsay Fox?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking to him. He's that kind of person on the other end of the phone. He's just loves his St Kilda sort of AFL team. So does Lindsay, and just really down to earth. He's obviously done all right for himself in life. And he loves his Sauv Blanc, and we have a good chat. Every time I speak to him, hey, how's the Saints going? And and we connect that way, and
good rapport,
good rapport, and sales. Like I'd never worked in sales.
Oh, really?
Until 7th of October last year, first time I got a job in sales. So I'm 47, just turned 47,
young 47.
So we're the same age. Never sold a thing. And I didn't even, sales wasn't even in my universe, bro. Like I've worked in jobs where there's a sales component.
Yep.
That's just not me. Like,
that's an advantage though, I think, because you're not tainted with maybe the, what do you call it, like the status quo of doing sales. Maybe you got a different perspective now. Maybe. Which is fresh.
Yeah, I feel like I was born to sell. But I never knew that I was born to sell.
Yeah.
So it's taken me 47 years to realise that. And now I feel like I've got my nappies on, and and I'm just learning. It's just
Training.
opened up this whole new world, and it's all about psychology, bro.
Yeah.
Sales is about psychology.
But like break down sales though, because really to me, sales is helping people.
Yeah,
You know,
it is.
you sell what you believe in. Well, you should.
You've got to be
that's good salesman.
You've got to be
sell
passionate about what you're selling.
Yeah. If you believe in it,
100.
it's easy to sell.
It's easy to sell, and so I just feel like it was meant to be for me to work for this company. So there's another company called Vino Mofo, which is a famous sort of online wine retail place. The guy who co-founded it is a guy called Justin Joy. And I used to go to the gym with him when I worked at my previous job at Red Energy.
Yep.
And we sort of connected at the gym, and we used to talk about his business. And
interesting chats. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting chats, man. Like,
probably back then you probably would have thought you'd never get into that industry, but you'd have a conversation about it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think my mind had sort of...
Well, maybe initially.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't there yet, but maybe it was subconsciously sowing the seed.
Yep. Sowing, yep.
And so then one day I just made a decision after 9 years of working for this energy retailer.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a risk. And
Good for you.
I was right in my comfort zone. I could have been there for the next 9 years quite easily.
Oh, yeah, at least.
I had my long service. The job was relatively easy. My team was really good. Most of the senior management team I thought were really good. But I just,
what were you missing?
I just wasn't challenged anymore.
Yeah.
And then I rediscovered my passion for wine during lockdown because, we're at home more, and I just found like I was buying more wine and drinking more wine. And I just
enjoying a bit of wine, yeah.
Enjoy a bit of wine. And then I just thought I made a decision sort of in the heat of the moment. Not going to lie.
It's a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
You need like purpose, and you feel like you're missing a challenge, and you're enjoying some wine, so you think, I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I sort of made the decision to resign, and I remember sort of walking outside the office, and I called my wife, and I said, I've just resigned.
She didn't know. Yeah.
No, we didn't discuss it, and she was like, oh, okay. And she's probably thinking...
supportive, but still nervous, huh?
Nervous, bro. Nervous. Yep. And, it's after 9 years, it's a long time. And
the uncertainty, especially with the COVID,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was no... sort of, let's make sure that we have a job to go to. Before I made that decision, it was just like, nah, I'm just going to do it. And then I did it, and then I had all my eggs in one basket. I reached out to Justin, and I said, look, I've just resigned of my job of 9 years, and I've rediscovered my passion for wine during lockdown. I'd love to have the opportunity to work for Vino Mofo. And he's like, mate, well, first and foremost, congratulations. Good on you for making that decision.
Yeah.
And secondly, absolutely. Go through the process, and, gave me the details for the HR person there, and I reached out to her, and then I went through a formal interview process, and I wasn't successful. So they loved me. I interviewed very well, and they ended up employing someone who had experience, and that's fair enough. So, here's a guy who has zero sales experience,
But you're learning, though. You're gaining, and you're networking along the way, which is quite valuable too, yeah?
Yeah, so, and that's it. They said, we'll keep your CV on file, and,
Bit of a kick to the guts, but sometimes you need that to,
That's exactly right. So then I just kind of thought, what am I going to do now? Like I had all my eggs in that basket, and that was what was going to happen. I was going to leave this job and then get this job, and this job's in Port Melbourne, and Sophie works at Port Melbourne.
Yeah.
We're going to drive and everything.
And you would have done the research about the company and the locations, all that, and kind of invested in visualizing yourself there and what you were going to do.
Rocked into the office one day just randomly to check it out, and loved it, and met one of the staff members there, and it was just I'd made the decision in my mind, and it was all going to work out, and then it didn't work out, and it's just like, what am I going to do now? And then I remembered back to when I put something on social media that I wanted to get in the wine industry, and a friend of mine in New Zealand reached out, and he said, look, if you're looking for a job in wine, just speak to me and I'll see what I can do for you. So I remembered that. And then I reached out to him and I said, I'm still looking for something in wine. He's like, no worries. This guy's a New Zealand manager, sales manager of the company that I'm now working for. So he put the good word in for me for United Cellars in Sydney, and I didn't even interview, bro. So I basically had a couple of conversations with the HR woman there, didn't even speak to the sales manager at all, and I was hired. And the next thing, I'm learning this new job remotely, the very first employee to be trained fully remote, which was a challenge.
Really?
Yeah. And
that's important.
Yeah, I'm not
to make the first successful,
Bro, I'm not a technical person. You'd be way more, 100 times more technical than me.
But you're a problem solver, so
I'm a people person.
Yeah.
So my people skills are where my strength is.
Yeah.
And so lucky enough for me, like my wife, she's very good on technical. Like,
that's good.
Very good. So she just helped me immensely. And so I learned all the technical side of things. I'm still kind of learning as I go, but I've got the sort of 80, 90%.
I should always be learning,
Yeah, you never stop learning. And then so my first day selling, I made 2 sales, man. And
that's exciting. Yeah.
I remember the very first one, and you have all this doubt, man. As humans, we doubt ourselves. Even the most successful human beings on the planet, they've got this doubt. It's in every single one of us.
There's a term. What's that term? I can't. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
But you can get over it, It takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of timing.
You can. So I remember like making the very first sale, and I just couldn't believe it. Like I can still remember now. Like it was an elderly guy, probably maybe retired, and I sold him a dozen.
So how does it work? Like somebody calls or
no.
There's an email
so
process.
You start with what's called an acquisition list, and how they obtain the acquisition list is the people who are on this list have visited a winery, and when they've gone to the winery, they've filled out all the details expressing interest in the wine. So we know that
that's the database.
That's the database. And this is the hardest sort of data to start on because they've never made a sale through us. So
you don't have context about them too, yeah?
They've never bought through us. So a lot of the conversations are around, how did you get my number? Who are you?
Bit of trust issues to begin with.
And then even if they're interested in the wine, do I want to give my credit card to you over the phone? I've never bought anything from you. You're this random person on the other end of the phone. Why should I give you my details?
It's a bit imposing too.
Yeah.
Getting a call from anyone that you don't know is a little bit, already you start off on that impression. It's
exactly.
bit resistant now.
And there's so many scammers these days.
Oh, yeah.
So
too many.
That makes it even harder.
Yeah, you're competing with scammers.
You're competing with scammers.
to get people's attention and trust.
Yeah. And so that's a massive challenge in itself.
Man, that's cool, though.
And then I managed to smash it, bro. Like I was getting, I think in one day, I got like eight or nine sales in a day, which in acquisition is just unheard of.
Really?
So I smashed it. And then
awesome.
It came to, so I started the job beginning of October, and then during Christmas time, a lot of the senior wine brokers, they just have a break.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
that was your opportunity to get in there?
And during that time, when they're away, kind of I stepped up and I was given access to sort of data that they deal with on a daily basis, sort of more regular people who buy from us, who bought from us before, and the trust has already been established. And I just smashed it. And then for like...
Just facilitate, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you want? I can help.
Exactly.
As smooth as possible, whatever you want.
Whatever you want. And then for sort of the next month or two while they're away, I was like the number one sales person in the company.
And you had only been there, what, a couple of months?
Yeah.
Few
like
months?
3 months.
Yeah.
So, but this is only when these guys are away. So
yeah,
I'm kind of,
still.
And so then I kind of developed a reputation, and they're like, oh, we want you to come to Sydney, and we're going to put you up in a hotel, and we want you regularly coming up, and you can taste the wines and all this kind of stuff, and
bit more training,
all this kind of stuff, and so then more doors started opening up, and so now I went up to Sydney about 3 weeks ago. And we did a spirits tasting. So I tasted 5 whiskies, 2 gins, spiced rum, and a tequila.
All right.
And so that was good. And it's important in this industry that you're tasting what you're selling.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, you got to believe in the product.
You've got to believe in it.
And when you talk about the product, you got to actually know what you're talking about.
You've got to know what you're talking about. And so... you've got to be passionate, like what we said before, and then you've got to know it, and then you've got to know a bit about the history, like, these international wines we're selling from Spain, Italy, France, New Zealand, whatever. We've got to tell that story.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. So, and so you're like a sponge. You're learning every single day, and you're just adding to this thing every single day, and it starts coming together, and
you're building.
And the thing with selling is the challenging thing with selling is that everyone's different. So it's not like you got a blueprint and okay, I've just sold like 2 dozen wine to that person. That was successful. I'm going to use that for the next person.
What did you do there? Yeah. Like a template.
Yeah, a template. And then you try and use that for the next person, and they're a completely different human being with different palate, different experiences, different likes, loves, whatever. And so you're constantly, every single person you speak to, it's
got to be a fresh approach.
It's a fresh approach. And it's a talent to be able to adapt every single time to that person who you're speaking to. And a lot of the time, for the less frequent people we speak to, people don't want to buy. So the natural reaction is they don't want to buy, right? As soon as they hear, oh, it's Chris from United Sellers, I don't want to buy. And then it's about objection handling and navigating your way through, and then getting to a point where there's a wine they've had before that they've liked, and then sell it. It's not so much about selling them the wine, but making them want to buy it. So there's another sort of a thing that I've was brought to my attention by a friend. It's on Audible. It's like a Audible book called Flip the Script.
Flip the Script.
It's really good, man. It's an American guy. over in the States, and he just talks about selling and pitching, and it's incredible, man. It's all about connecting with that person, and having that ability. It's a real art. One of the stories he talks about in this book is there's like a bartender at a bar, and he's at this bar one day, and it's like some function, and they're only selling like two types of beer, right? So like Carlton Draft or some real cheap stuff.
Victoria.
And he's looking for a more premium one, right? So how he goes about it is he kind of connects with that bartender, and they have a conversation about like a particular beer, like a craft beer or something, and then the bartender connects immediately straight away. She's like, oh, Monteith's, like, oh yeah, Monteith's, and they talk about New Zealand.
So they get on a personal
level, and they get that little connection, and then they're having that talk, and then after making that connection, oh, actually, we've got like a couple of these bottles out the back.
Exactly.
That no one gets sold to, because the people at the front, all they're aware of is the Carlton Draft and the other cheaper beer. There's other beers there, man, but they don't have that ability to connect with that human being as a human being.
Yeah, it's like a friend helping a friend.
Yeah,
a friend will be more transparent and do whatever they have access to their options, like discounts and all these sorts of things. So you approach a stranger, you get on that personal level. It's like creating a new friendship. They're more open to providing access that they have,
100%. And you can do that in every single setting.
Yeah.
Like, I was at the Australian Open earlier this year, and, there's this like VIP area, and, you're supposed to have some special pass to get in and stuff. Mate, I'm kind of observing from a distance all these people going up trying to get in there. No. Mate, I just go up there and start chatting to this lady.
Get on the personal level first.
Yeah. And just have a chat, and we talk about this and that, and talk about this, and then it's just about making that connection.
Yeah,
and
that human connection.
And most people don't do that. They're just all about themselves, and they want to get to, they want to have the beer, they want to get in that place, they want to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And
they miss that important step.
They miss it
to connect,
and then through missing that, they're missing out on a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
And it just opens up so many doors. So, and this is what I'm finding in my job, is that I can create these amazing connections with all these people on the phone, and through creating these connections, it's going to be mutually beneficial for both of us, because I want to know about their lives. Like, some of these people are really interesting, man.
Yeah.
There's another guy I spoke to who. He owns like a couple of places in France, and he does the Airbnb stuff. I'm like, mate, I want to go to France. If I go to France, definitely going to be in touch, and then would love to be able to stay at one of your places. And, oh yeah, it's got this tour. I can tell you about this tour, and we'd take you all these wineries and stuff. And there's so many opportunities. Like, every single time you connect with someone, like genuinely connect. Like,
yes, that's important, genuine.
And it's like, if they want to buy, it's a bonus.
Yeah.
But I've made that connection, and they've got some interesting lives, man. Amazingly interesting lives. And you just get to connect with them, and it's such a fulfilling experience to be able to do that. So
I can imagine.
Oh man, it's
what just popped into my mind. You got to put more like this sort of a podcast, like a. Have you heard of Gary Vee?
Yeah.
You know his background?
Yeah, I know he was. I think he was from was it Russia, Ukraine, somewhere around there, and came to the States. Belarus, yeah. It came to the States when he was quite young, and I suppose his parents didn't know English, and he kind of learned English himself, and
his father worked in the wine industry.
Yes.
And then his father went on to start his own wine business.
Yeah.
And then as Gary was growing up, he kind of, merged into that company, and he helped that company go from like a $3 million something to like 60 million.
Yeah.
But his whole thing was is getting the attention first. And so what he did way back in like mid 90s, he started like a YouTube channel, like reviewing wines, which is unheard of way back then, not early. It would have been like 2006 maybe.
Yeah.
So like mid 2000s. And that's what I'm thinking is like, to create that genuine connection and that human trust. Like if you went online and reviewed things, and then when you do talk to people, you could kind of refer them to like a certain channel potentially.
Yeah.
And so then in their own time, they could check you out. And then that kind of reaffirms like, oh, I know what Chris looks like. He's talking about wine, like more strength in the trust. So next time Chris calls up, I know Chris now,
Bro, that is a brilliant idea.
Well, I'm just talking about what Gary Vee did,
That is
the same industry.
That is an amazing idea. Because I think...
but there's a lot of hurdles around that, if you want to put yourself out there like that. But I think, like you're saying, the connection and the trust, once you got that, that's like the binding of everything. And then you just kind of grow off that,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a guy who kind of works for the business. He's pretty much been there since the outset. He used to work in the warehouse, putting bottles in boxes, and then he became a wine broker because through doing his job in the warehouse, he became aware very quickly which wines were more popular and which weren't.
Observing.
I'm putting like 100 bottles of this wine, and this must be a good wine. So he was just learning as he went.
Hands-on.
And very, very smart guy, man. He actually was a professional soccer player. So he was a goalkeeper. And he was paid to play soccer, and he was
professional. Eh?
Professionally, yeah. He played overseas, and he was very close to sort of really cracking the big time. And then he got injured and had to look for something else, and ended up in this warehouse. But he, through many years and a lot of hard work, he works harder than anyone else. He has established these amazingly close relationships with about 600 people who he speaks with on a daily basis. And for 2022, like where it's the last day of April today, or is it May today? It's May. 1st of May, yeah?
Happy first of the month.
Pitch and a punch. So he's already sold for this year just shy of $1 million worth of wine. And he just has these amazing connections to the point where they have the utmost trust in the guy. So they will, a lot of these clients, men or women, vice versa, whatever, the men will trust him to pick a wine for the wife. The woman will trust him to pick a wine for the husband. Ooh. And they don't even need
That's difficult.
Yeah. And his knowledge is just an encyclopedia in his brain.
Sounds like a very observant person. So.
Very, very observant. And he gets invited on these like billionaires' yachts, and he's into he's got a nice car himself, drives the fast car, and he goes driving with these other guys and does the connecting off, outside of work as well during work.
That's important. Yeah.
But his work ethic is just second to none, and you can see that work ethic shining through, and that's the reason why he's been able to build these amazing connections with these people, because he works so hard. There was one of his clients is the 300th richest person in the world, this guy who lives in Switzerland. And last time I was up in Sydney, he was telling me about a deal he was trying to do with this guy, and he was up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to like get it all together, and he ended up selling this guy $130,000 worth of wine. It was like 70 bottles or something. And but he puts the work in. Like he works harder than anyone else, and it really comes through. So
work ethics, yeah.
Oh, it's so important, man. And it's like, you know, in life, we all have that option. We all have that opportunity, but not everyone
makes that
decision. And even you know, like before the podcast started today, you know, you and I briefly chatted about execution, and bro, we're living the execution that you have set up yourself right now, because so many times I listen to people and hear people and, oh, you know, we should start a podcast. But it never gets beyond that. It's just a conversation, and it never gets executed. And we're executing, you know, we're living your podcast dream now. And, you know,
I would say for this particular podcast, execution would be like 30 years.
Yeah.
That's when I will believe like the execution will be like solidified.
Okay.
When someone deep and dear of one of us, either when they watch this again somewhere in the future, that's when my understanding, or that's where my belief of execution would happen.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say right now, but yeah, it's still part of the process, you know.
Yeah,
still part of the process.
So you've got a long-term sort of goal.
If you consider that long-term,
yeah, 30 years. That's pretty long-term.
I don't know. Maybe 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, talking about execution, they say like ideas are crap. It's all about the execution, you know. Everyone has like $1 billion ideas, but not everyone makes decisions step by step to execute on the ideas. You know, we could probably talk in the next half an hour, probably the next 10 years of innovation. But are we going to like actively do those steps and go through the challenges that will be there? You know, that's the importance. You know,
and I think, like I showed you, you know, the drawing that my wife did of me, and then I did of my wife last night, and you know, it takes time for her to sit down and draw me, and vice versa. And we both did it. And we're not artists, right? We're not Picassos. We're not Michelangelos. But we did it. And that right there is the difference between an idea or innovating or whatever and executing. We're not afraid to fail. We're not afraid, it's going to look average. It's not going to look realistic. Whatever. We just do it, and then we do it, and we look at it, and we have a laugh, and we just laughed at each other. Then we just like, you know, we actually did it. Like, it's not perfect, but it's about having a go, and it's about you know, enough of the talk. Just do it, because most people never get to that do it stage. It remains at talking, and then they get to, you know, towards the end of their life, and it's like, I wish I'd done it. Yeah,
or like, someone else does the idea, and then for the rest of their life, they're like, I had that idea first.
Yeah, and don't
stole my idea.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Not about the idea.
Nah, don't be afraid to not look good. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't be afraid of failing. Just having a go and failing is better than not having a go and you don't know. So the worst that can happen is you can do it and it doesn't work out, and you can say, man, I'm even though it didn't work out, I'm really glad that I actually had a go.
Yeah.
because I've got no regret because I actually had a go. Whereas if you just don't do anything and then you get to the end of your life and it's just like,
Regret.
I don't even know because I didn't try. So I don't even know if I'd fail at it because I just didn't try it. So I think, yeah, like last night, you know, it was really good. Like seeing, like I've never seen my wife draw in my life.
Oh, really?
Nah.
Oh, okay.
First time.
That's cool.
And she's just drawing there, and then she says to me, "I want you to draw me." And here I am on the couch, you know, doing some mindless, you know, whatever I'm doing, nothing. And then I just escapism, and then just shut everything off and sit down and focus for a few minutes and just devote my entire focus in my brain to that moment. And even though, you know, I did it, and you know, it's not like a Leonardo da Vinci painting, a Mona Lisa.
Debatable.
It's all about perception. But, you know, I'm proud of myself that I took the time out to do that because...
You guys had a good moment.
We had a good moment.
Yeah.
And it just proves to me that that the most important thing in life is to have a go. Regardless of whether you succeed or fail, have a go, and then you can say, you know, I tried it, and then you want to inspire other people to also have a go, to get them out of the talking stage, to get them out of the, you know, the dreaming stage, mate. Get them out of the comfort zone, and just to get them to have a go themselves. Yeah, that is what life is about, man. Just have a go.
It's the moments.
If I wasn't sitting talking with you here, I'd probably still be in bed. I'd probably be, you know, doing something at home. And life is about connecting with people. It's about connecting.
Oh, it definitely enriches the experiences.
It enriches the experience, and sometimes, as human beings, I know for myself. I'm blocked by myself, and I don't want to go. Like I feel like I just want to stay home, shut the doors. I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to connect with anyone. I just want to stay home. And then I'm aware of what's going on in my brain, and then I'm like, actually, no, I need to push through that. And an example of that was. On Friday, a good friend of mine was asked to be on a panel.
What kind of panel? Like a...
So there was a premiere of a human rights arts festival Indian film that came out on Friday, and she was asked to be on a panel and speak about this film straight after the premiere of it.
Yep.
And I work sort of a little bit sort of unusual hours because of the wine industry, so I start later and then I finish later. And you know, because of my hours, if I had said, oh, you know, I'm finishing late, I'm not going to be able to make the premiere of this movie, but I made it happen. I'm just like, I'm not going to make an excuse. I'm not going to make an excuse not to be able to see my friend. And also it was raining. Remember on Friday it was raining?
Yeah.
It was cold, it was raining. Like you don't want to leave your house, you know, you just want to stay home.
Yeah, I was outside painting and it rained on me, so I remember.
and it's like no. It's about, you know, getting past what's going on in your brain, getting out of the house. Actually the first part is buying the ticket, right? So even though I know I'm working till this time and I probably shouldn't be going there, I'm going there. I'm going to go there. So the first step is taking action and buying the ticket. And then obviously the day comes on Friday and then it's wet and cold and raining, and then you execute, and then you get your wife, you convince your wife to come because she didn't want to come as well. She wanted to just stay home.
Well, that's a tricky one because
she's tired.
That should be her decision.
It should be her decision. But the way that I convinced her to come.
Oh, you convinced her she made a decision.
Yeah. So this woman, she's been very kind to us, man. She always invites us to her house, and she's very accommodating. I've known her for a long time. We went to India together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went to our friend's wedding, so we had a connection. That's where we connected. This is like a few years ago. And so, she's recently relocated from Adelaide to Melbourne, and she's just a really nice person, man.
Nice.
Very strong, powerful woman. She sort of has a lot of opinions, and she's part of a lot of things supporting the lower class of Indian population, because there's a caste system over there.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much you know about it. I'm learning a lot. But I wasn't aware of how prevalent that it was, and
practically, I think it's still there, but I think they've outlawed it.
Well, they were saying, one of the speakers on this panel on Friday was saying the University of California has added caste to the discrimination list, so you can't discriminate.
It is discrimination.
Yeah, you can't.
It's a form of it.
So you can't do that legally now, for California University. But it just opened my eyes in terms of it's like a form of racism within your own race.
It's classism.
It's classism. And another of the panelists described it as. There's a 4-level house and no staircase. So you're born on this level, you're born on this level, you're born on this level, and you're there for life.
For generation.
For generation, and you're judged. You're judged based on that caste. And so
that's why arranged marriages are what they are in the Indian culture.
Exactly. And so I learnt that of the people who leave India and go and live overseas, 17% of the people who do that, and they're all upper caste. There's hardly any Dalits, which is the lower class, that come overseas. It's all the upper caste.
Yeah.
And so around the world, we're not experiencing the true Indian culture, because the upper caste are only 17% of the Indian population, and yet they make up 99% of the people who go out of India and live in other countries. So, we don't get to see the true India living in a place like Australia, because we're only seeing a tiny little part.
It's the surface.
It's the surface. And so.
But you've been to India. What did you experience?
Oh man, it's different for a Westerner, I think.
Your Western eyes.
Yeah. Like I love India, but I'm not aware. I'm not aware of this caste system. But now that I'm being educated on it, I think the next time I go there, I'll be more
conscious.
I'll be more conscious.
Yeah.
So, there was a grandma on this movie who's 80 years old and never had access to a toilet because of her caste.
Whoa.
And she's got granddaughters who've never used a toilet.
Or like a conventional toilet that we would just consider just average here.
We just don't even
not even average, it's just like...
We just don't even think about it.
Yeah, it's like...
We just have it.
It should be a given.
Yeah. And, it's just these kind of things. So, getting back to the point, it's about the execution, man. It's about even though your brain is saying, "Oh, Ray, I don't want to leave the house, man. I don't want to go down to Altona and finish that mural. I just don't want to do it. I just want to stay home." It's just about pushing through and executing, and 9 times out of 10, most of the time, once you execute and you do it and you go against what your brain is telling you to do, and you feel better, man. It's like, you'll be driving home from doing a bit more on your mural. I drove home on Friday after seeing this movie, and I felt good. I felt good. It's like, there's another close friend of mine who I told you, I may connect with today if he's free, and I want to see this guy, man. I haven't seen him for a long time. I don't think I've seen him in April, and I've sent him a few texts, and I'm just going to reach out, and if he's available, I'll go see him. That's what life's about. It's about connecting,
pushing through, eh?
pushing through, and just making that effort, and people will never forget those things. They'll never forget them. Like, ask me to my friend who was on the panel on Friday. She will never forget Sophie and I making the effort to drive in the rain and the cold, and go outside of our way to support her. And that's not why we did it, but she won't forget it. So
the feeling she's always going to. Feelings are last long. They last longer. Yeah, when you make someone feel a certain way, they remember the feeling rather than what was actually articulated in a conversation or what circumstances were.
Yeah. Just making that effort. I think we just live in a very busy world at the moment, and time is so valuable, and even time for yourself. Like me,
that's important.
Doing that drawing for my wife and her doing that drawing for me. Like, we took out time to do that, and it's like meditation as well. So I did a little meditation before I came and saw you today on the podcast. I think it was about 15 minutes, and we don't generally take even 15 minutes of our time for ourselves.
Yeah,
we just don't.
And
like,
you could argue 50 minutes is not long enough to,
Nah.
But in this day and age, 15 minutes is a long time.
Oh, it's a long time.
Yeah.
Like, we're constantly plugged in, man. It never gets unplugged. And then to actually unplug it, and then I'm going to have this time for Ray, and just for Ray. But I suppose with you, that's a bit like your art, because that's your time as well. You're expressing yourself creatively, and you're taking the time out for yourself to do that.
Yeah.
So that's
for therapeutic reasons. Yeah.
That's like a meditation in
it
itself.
Is, yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of people don't even do that. They're just
bottled up, and
they're constantly plugged in, and they can't unplug it. And it's so important that we just take the time out for ourselves to have some time for us as individuals, and for you as well. Like, without your partner and your kids, and it's just for Ray, and the same for my wife. Like, she has her time, and your wife can have some time for herself, and it's just really important.
Oh, super, super important. I find when you don't have those things, it's going to explode in some form at some time. You need a vent.
You need to vent, and
in a healthy manner.
And most people, they don't have awareness. They're stuck in their heads, man. So they're not even.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault, but they're not even aware that they need to make time for themselves. They don't even have that awareness.
Yeah, it's not a concept that we talk about often.
No,
not yet. It's not a concept that's
And they're just living, in this world in their head, and every action and reaction is just happening to them with subconsciously, without even being consciously aware of it. And
that's such a tricky one too, because you could have a healthy form of expression. You can have a healthy outlet, you know. But then there's also the unhealthy, which most people gravitate to, you know.
100%.
Like alcoholism, or just binge watching. Not to say, you know, it's subjective, but going back to your point, like the pushing through thing.
Yeah.
I think the important first step before that is the understanding the why.
Yeah.
Because with the why, everything else flows, you know? So you're pushing through, why?
Yeah.
You've got that reason that you believe in that helps you push through.
Yeah.
You execute on an idea, why? Because that's what you wanted to achieve,
Yeah.
you know? Whatever the why was for you, without the why, everything else will kind of lose momentum,
Yeah.
or even meaning. You know, doing things for the sake of doing things will still have that empty feeling unless you replace it with a why.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their own different whys, you know. But it's important that your why is your why, you know, regardless of someone else's opinion. You should have your own why.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No.
figuring out the why is very important. That's the first step, I would say.
Yes. Yeah. I think even doing the drawing, you know, of my wife last night, I think, you know, I'd already subconsciously worked out the why, man.
Yeah,
It's like-
exactly. Yeah.
It's like she's taken time out of her.
And you wanted to connect on a deep level.
Yeah.
That was the why.
That was the why.
So that's why you put all your energy and your
Yeah.
focus into it.
Yeah.
Because the why was the deep connection with your wife.
Exactly.
And then after you'd done that, you I'm assuming you felt good.
Oh man, it was a special feeling. Just, you know, we both looked at our drawings and we just had a good laugh,
Good
man.
laugh,
it was just
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
and then she shared it with her aunties on this WhatsApp group, and they all had a
Nice.
good laugh, and it's like, yeah,
That was part of the why, you know.
That's
you
it.
executed on your subconscious why.
and what I'm going to do is, and building on that or adding to that, I'm gonna put it out there into the world
As a positive
as
effect.
a positive, and I want to inspire other people to, even though, you know, we're not we're not a fancy Banksy artist, or, you know, no, we're not a famous artist.
Yeah.
We still as human beings can express ourselves.
Yeah.
And
100%.
get away from, oh, I can't do it, it's going to be average. Just get away from all that and just execute. Like,
Because
find
the
your
why,
way.
you know,
The why, yeah,
the why eliminated the doubts.
yeah, and then just do it, and it feels good,
done it.
man. It feels so good.
That's an example of like a full, complete circle,
Oh,
cycle
yeah, it's such a good
of
feeling.
progression.
And then if we can inspire other people, you know,
Yes.
find your why, and whatever that may be, and
Yeah.
just do it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna feel good,
Yeah.
regardless of the outcome. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's such a good feeling, man.
I'm a firm believer. You never lose, you learn. You know.
No, and you know, failure is just learning.
I think failure to me is giving up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
failure is giving up if you fail and then you don't act, you don't do any further action. But then if you continue on, and then you fail again, and then you continue on, you fail again, you continue fail again, and then you continue on, and then something works.
that's why I say, like, when you give up, that's when you fail.
Yeah.
Because giving up on something you want, you already know what you want.
Yeah.
I would suggest you go and do what you want. But if you give up on what you want, that's a failure to me.
Oh yeah.
Because you're just cheating yourself, you know?
yeah.
Going back to your point is like pushing through and figuring it out, like to execute. But then if you give up and consciously you know what you want, but you don't do it, that's, to me, the giving up. Like giving up on your pursuit, that's a fail.
Yeah.
In my mind, you know?
Yeah. And is it...
Because you can make mistakes. That's not a fail. That's learning. That's a lesson. And the sooner you learn the lessons, the sooner you're going to achieve execution to what you want and your why.
Do you think it's the fear that holds people back?
The fear of what exactly?
Failure.
Or you mean making a mistake?
Yeah. Or not looking good. Yeah. The fear of not looking good.
Not looking good. Yep. But then if you understood your why, that gets eliminated, you know?
Yeah.
Because if you know what you want and you know why you're doing it, you're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
You know? Superficial things like vanity metrics, looking good on the surface, like that kind of gets blurred on the side because you have a clear vision of where you want to be.
Yeah.
And making mistakes are just lessons to get you closer. You know, for example, you've made a decision on a why. You want to get in this wine industry, you know, and to some degree maybe excel in this new exciting industry. You went for a job interview with connections. You thought you would have, you had like a shoe in, you know, but then you missed out on an opportunity, but you keep going. See, most people, if they didn't have like that subconscious why, they would have just said, oh, let me call my old boss up. Yeah, you know what? I changed my mind. Come back. But you established what you wanted.
Yes.
So that helped push through. You know?
Exactly.
And because you missed out on that interview, I think you would call it like a failure.
Yeah.
But I would call it like a lesson because you would have learned all these sort of things in the process. And that helped you to move on to the next step.
100%.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the process.
It's all part of the process. So you're learning.
Yeah.
Mistakes is learning. As long as you know why.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. And you've just, I don't know, I think a big thing with human sort of behavior is, you know, if they fail once, they do give up.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, you take a sample of 1,000 people and if they try something and they fail at it, you know, I think they've done sort of, you know, scientific sort of analysis on it, you know, like 900 of the 1,000 will give up entirely and they won't try it again.
Businesses.
Yeah, and then, you know, 100 out of the 1,000 maybe will try again. And then if they fail a second time, 80 out of that 100 will not try again, and then only 20 will try a third time. So, you know, as human beings, we don't like failure. We're scared of it. We're scared of it. And it's about just not being afraid. It's like, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid that it's not going to work out.
Or make a mistake. Because like going back to the why is the most difficult thing to obtain.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, our minds are just not so clear. We're cluttered, you know. As a Western society, we don't have a clear, functioning kind of thought patterns to figure out the why.
Yeah.
But once you figure out the why, everything else is a lot, like, statistically, you're more likely to persevere.
Yeah.
You know, once you figure out the why. But the why that's the most important, most difficult. It's not so, it sounds easy, you know, like, it sounds like an easy kind of, figure out the why, but then the hard part is like, you know, pushing through and all this and that. But actually, I would say bring it back, because the reason why most people don't succeed or don't execute is because they haven't figured out the why. And the why is the foundation you build upon.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna focus on the why. Like, figure out the why.
Yep.
And then see how you go.
Yeah.
Like this podcast, my why is for your great grandchildren or nieces or relatives. I want them to watch you.
Yeah.
And I want them to see you.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
Okay. 30 years down the track. 100 years down the track. Yeah.
I don't care about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Vanity metrics.
Yeah.
I think about family watching me.
Yeah.
40 years from now, see me talk.
Can see the emotion, man.
That's my why.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, man.
It's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, back to the star.
All right. You just reminded me. I saw a thing on the internet yesterday, and it was a little 2-year-old baby, and the parent, the father, is taking a video of this 2-year-old, and it's got the 2-year-old is watching Whitney Houston sing this song, and she gets to this part of the song, and it's very emotional, and you just see the reaction on this 2-year-old baby, and you can just see instantly this reaction on this face, and seeing your reaction there just reminded me, man. I could just see your brain went somewhere, and it's just pure emotion right in the moment there. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's so.
That's the why.
Yeah,
Why is
the why.
passion.
Yeah, it's. I just suddenly feel real calm, like seeing you, like.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's just. It's
The
just,
why,
It's the why. Seeing the why come out in you, it's just kind of released all this tension in me. So thanks, man.
And as a byproduct, you hope people witness these moments and the lessons that we're discussing. And then they can apply it, and then they can spread.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is how we learn, isn't it? It's like we learn through
sharing
and of our own life experiences. And it's so important. It's so important. And I think as a parent as well, like you must think about your kids and
of course,
and
it's a big part of the why,
Yeah, like the pivotal influence that you have on their lives. Man, you can literally change their world.
Make or break.
Yeah.
I hope to make.
Yeah, and you're making a massive difference in not only their lives, man, but in my life and countless others.
The connections that we share, just you and I,
Yeah, it's and that's another thing about the time as well. It's like it's just taking the time for us to participate today. For us to reach out and look at these shared experiences and learn from them, like taking the time to do that, rather than be completely, totally plugged in to the matrix, and you're never unplugged, and you don't take that time to do that, because that's how we're going to learn, and that's how we're going to be better people. And make a better sort of influence on the world. Yeah.
And start with yourself first.
Start with yourself. Yeah.
And then it's contagious.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, sharing this video, someone, even if one person looks at it, man,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, they take something out of it that connects in their brain. They see your why come out in the moment, and then
hopefully people can relate, but then also think, whoa, it's making me think, what's my why?
Yeah.
And the clearer we become on our whys, the more effective we are on our execution, or the path to execution.
Yeah.
For fulfillment, because that's what we want, fulfillment, really. Well, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, it's how do I feel fulfilled in life?
Yeah.
And so that's a question that helped me figure out my whys, And you have to be honest with yourself.
You've got to be brutally honest with yourself.
Brutally honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, I feel like, man, I'm only breached the surface. Like I'm sort of 1%, and there's this 99% that needs to be tapped into. But a lot of people don't even get to the 1%.
Yeah, we have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
So much.
And even if we're only acting on 1%, and we're executing on 1%, we're still like in the top 1%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because 100%, well, not 100%,
our
but
brain
90,
power.
Yeah.
Our brain capacity.
So,
just imagine 2%.
Just double. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Look at what we've achieved at this point. And I think we've achieved an amazing amount, both of us. But we've only just scratched.
I know so.
But we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So we could both do so much more, and it's like you say, it's being honest with yourself. It's about being honest with yourself, because I know that I can personally do it so much more.
But this is just a rhetorical question. But what is it that you want, though? Not to say like, tell me.
Yeah.
But just what is it that you really like? What's the ambition? What's being brutally honest with yourself? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want in life? That's for you to think of. That's
yeah. Yeah.
That's a very deep and personal question too. What do you want? People that may be watching this, like, it's a very simple question, but what the most complex, probably the most complex answer to a very simple question. Yeah, so it's rhetorical, but that's the why and the like. What do you want? Those simple questions are the most difficult to answer.
Yeah,
and I think that's why so many people are not fulfilled, not successful in their execution. It's because they don't know.
No,
they haven't. For one, like you said, they haven't allocated the time to process their own thoughts and their own feelings and their own wants. So they haven't invested the time to answer that simple question. And then also the understanding of the concept. That's like a foreign concept when you get to that deep level, So because we haven't really addressed those two to begin with as a society, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We just go with the status quo. Like, okay, you got to do the study, the education. The better the education, the better the job opportunities. The better the job opportunities, that's when you're supposed to be happy, And then you start a family, or you have a little community in your house, you know, whether it be pets or children or just extended family. But then, like, this is where it becomes like a personal thing. Like, let's say you achieved all of those things, would you feel fulfilled? And some people will,
Yeah.
but some people won't. So this is when you start to figure out who you are as a person,
Yeah.
you know, and you want to limit the amount of regret. This is where, like you said, you got to be brutally honest with yourself.
Yes.
Lay it all out there. Like what, like how, regardless of how ridiculous it would be,
Yeah.
just lay it all out there so you can see for yourself. Go, oh, I like doing this. I love doing that. Figure out a plan once you can see, you know?
Yeah. Imagine how different our lives would be if they kind of removed the whole stereotypical kind of education structure. And rather than, oh yeah, okay, you're 5, you go to primary school, then you go to high school, and then you go to university. Imagine if they just removed that and then they kind of reversed engineered it and was like, okay, well, let's find out, you know, at a young early age, like, what are you passionate about? Like, what do you?
Man, that'll change drastically. You know?
Yeah,
change.
And then rather than go through that traditional educational path, you found out, you know, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, start with that first because it's like the why, you know.
And then tailor it.
Imagine how many people excel in their own paths, you know.
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea I had. Like when people say, "Will you move back to New Zealand?" and I'll always say that I will eventually.
Yeah,
but it's only to go back to educate for maybe a couple years.
Okay.
And to do exactly what you said, I want to go back and change the whole system.
Yeah.
I want to approach students with the, what are you passionate about first, and then what can we kind of like put in place, or what can, you know, we can brainstorm what stages are fit for you in your pursuit, you know. So exactly like what you said, go back and figure out what their passions are and then help them on their own custom path.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of Indians, a lot of Asians, you know, the principal sort of thing in determining their path is money. It's like,
yeah, but money is a means to an end, you know.
But it's like, you know, accounting,
yeah,
doctor, lawyer. If I become one of these, money. But it's not.
Or the approval from family.
Approval from family.
Because the family think of the money. And this is what I'm saying is people don't know what they want.
No.
An example of this is I had a conversation with my dad a few years ago before his stroke. And I asked him the same thing, the exact same thing as I ask, or most people I talk to, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
You know? And on the surface, a lot of people, it goes over their heads because they think, oh, okay, simple question. And they try to be smart. They say, I want a lot of money. I want a nice car. I want a big home. And they go, there, I answered your question. And I say, well, if you want a lot of money, let's hypothetically say, now you've got a lot of money. But that's all you got. So now what? Well, with the money, I could do this, I could do that. And I said, no. You just got the money. That's all you got.
Yeah.
So you can't use the money for anything else because all you asked for was this big pile of money. And so that's what I'm saying is people don't know what they want.
No.
The money is a facilitator. People want the money because they want this, they want that. So the answer is that.
Yeah.
Not the money.
No.
So when I asked you the question, what do you want? You should have said, I want the money. Oh, not I want the money, but I want that. I want this. I want that. The money was the tool. So you don't really want the tool.
No.
Tell me what you want. And this is what I'm saying. I've got to get deep with the with the question. What do you truly want? And like you said, be brutally honest. no matter how ridiculous it may be. So I had that conversation with my dad. I said, what do you want? He said, I want a lot of money. And he said the same thing. I want money for this and that. And I said, no, you got to tell me what you want.
Yeah.
And see how most people would say, I want the money. Yeah. So that to me is admission that they don't know what they want.
No.
Because they should have thought about the things that they wanted out of life to feel fulfilled. But we're just so focused on the money and not really addressing the whys and I want this.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, so when I resigned last year and I didn't have a job to go to and I was unemployed for 4 months. So, and the first month was awesome. Like I was connecting with all these people I hadn't seen in a long time.
Oh,
and that was amazing. And then
that's $1 million lifestyle.
Yeah, it was good. And then the second month was still pretty good. And then the third month, I'm just
you probably thought, okay, better start to do something now.
and that 4 months was crucial for me because it made me realize that it's so important to have a purpose in life. Like, because I know now that I can't exist and live without having a purpose.
Me too.
I just can't. Like, the third and the fourth month that I was unemployed, I had no purpose, man. It's like I had...
you're connecting with people and yourself too, I think.
Yeah. The connecting was good.
You're unwinding from years of working in this particular job.
Yeah, and, financially, I was fine and I didn't have to worry about money, but it just made me realize that it's important to have a purpose, and you get the purpose through finding something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And so the money's just a byproduct, man.
It's a tool.
It's a byproduct.
I just say it's a tool because money can help you invest in what you're doing. Money can help you enjoy other products and services. It's just a tool,
Yeah.
And you exchange, typically, traditionally, we sell our time for money so we can use it for other things.
Exactly. It's just money, even though it's important, it should never be the focus.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why people are lost, in their pursuit of happiness.
That's it. And I just know, I know because I've been in that position. So when I left my previous job that I worked for 9 years, I got a massive payout, man. And I had a lot of money, and I wouldn't have had to work for a couple of years if I'd made that choice.
Wow.
But, mate, it didn't make me happy.
You weren't fulfilled.
Didn't make me happy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
clear example.
Yeah, even though I had the opportunity to connect with all these people and stuff.
And financially, you were able to do that.
Yeah, but I had no purpose.
Yeah.
And so I know now,
it's so important.
Down the track, coming to more money, whatever, that's not going to bring me happiness. It's about me being able to make a difference in the world, man. That's what it is.
That's it.
And how I can make a difference in the world is I can connect to people on a deep level and really listen into their world in that conversation and make that connection. And that's how I can make a difference, through doing that.
Yeah, and then, I believe so.
And then if they want to buy something,
it's a byproduct. It's a bonus, like you said.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus. But
it helps facilitate the purpose too.
Exactly.
Because you're exchanging products for money. Money gets reinvested through the business. It helps you continue on doing the same thing.
Exactly. And then that's just made me think sort of just about an experience yesterday where we went for brunch in Moonee Ponds, and there's a lady on the street, and I'm passionate about the homeless, but like money's not going to give them purpose.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always give them money, like always, whenever I'm walking past them, and have a conversation and help as much as I can. But
the conversation will be a lot more rewarding.
Yeah,
but a lot more valuable.
But they need a purpose.
Yeah,
and they need to know their why. And money's just giving them money's like a band-aid sort of thing. It's like, they may be able to eat for another day or
even just that afternoon.
But nothing's going to change for them fundamentally.
Yes.
And you want that.
And that's not a significant change in helping.
Yeah, and you want them to have that change, but it's a really tough one. It's a tough one. And time, that's why time again is so valuable. And getting back to what we were saying before, taking, some time for you to go do your mural art in Point Cook, and for me to meditate this morning, and to draw each other last night. And time is so valuable. And then you're walking along the street and you see a homeless person, and we've got a place to go, man. We've always got places to go, people to see, things to do, and it's the time that's the most valuable thing for us. And time is probably the most valuable thing that you can give to that person.
It is, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so giving them money, it's all well and good, but it's not giving them the purpose, and it's not helping them to discover their own why.
Yeah, the reason why I said like that time is more valuable is because when you compare, you got the nominal amount, the dollar value, versus the time that you spent with that person. Chances are that time you spent with the person probably would help them in the longer run more than what you
give them monetary wise.
Monetary wise, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe your conversation could spark off a series of events that got them out of that rut.
Exactly.
Rather than like dollars. And
that could be sparked by a simple question.
Yep.
How did you end up here?
Yeah.
How did you end up here?
Exactly, yeah.
And then give them your time to listen to their answer.
Yeah. So many possibilities, but the chances increase drastically that you have applied your own time, rather than the dollar value.
So the asking of the question and giving your time to listen to their answer is invaluable.
Means so much
priceless compared to whatever money you give them.
Just walking past with no context, and here's some money.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like giving them money as well as it's like, and walking off, it's like, I don't have time for you. Have the money, but I don't have time for you.
It's like this Chris Rock bit I saw recently. He said that he doesn't give money for the person. He does it for himself to feel good.
Yeah.
And then you can go away and then you can tell other people the good deed you did, It's more like you did it for yourself, which isn't a bad thing. But let's recognize that sort of behavior.
That's about being brutally honest with himself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He's being brutally honest,
which is not a bad thing,
and not only with himself but with us.
Yeah,
like he's telling us.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people would probably think the same way as he does, but they wouldn't tell anyone. I'm giving this person $50 so I feel better, but they're not going to tell anyone. And then you get other people that you find sort of through philanthropy. That they do anonymously, and then after the fact, sometimes years down the track, and then it comes out through some third source or something, and it's like You know, they did it their way, and it's just so pure as well, because they didn't have to tell anyone, they didn't have to broadcast it, they just did it in its purity, and they made a difference, and I think that's the most pure form of it, because there's no validation required. It's
validation, that's the difference.
You're just doing it purely out of the purity of your heart. And
I think for both cases, it's important to recognize that you did it for yourself first.
Yeah.
In both cases, which isn't a bad thing, because we're human. Like, if we didn't feel good about doing it for ourselves, then we wouldn't do it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's important that we do it for ourselves, but the difference is, like you said, the validation, that's the part that's different.
and we live in a validation world.
Yeah.
We live in a world seeking validation, and whether that's consciously or subconsciously. Like, there's people that may not even be aware that they're seeking it.
Oh yeah,
but they're seeking it. And then there's people who are aware that they are deliberately seeking it, and they seek it. And that's a function of the technological age we're living in.
Social media,
yeah. You know, Elon Musk, he's seeking validation every time he puts a tweet out. You know, I'll get 1 million likes out of this. You know, like I'm going to buy Coca-Cola next and put cocaine back in it. Do you know what I mean? He's not doing that for just doing it. He's doing it because he's wanting a reaction.
Yeah.
And then he gets that reaction.
He's one of the biggest trolls around, eh?
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Yeah. So, yeah, how do we navigate our way in a technological age where we're living in a validation age, where we want to discover our why, we want to live a fulfilled life, but how do we do that without either consciously
with all
or
the
subconsciously
and the clouds
seeking validation for our why? How do we do that?
The way I look at it is, for me, validation is important.
Yeah.
So
to know that you're doing the right thing?
The right thing will depend on what I want.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a very how do I say? It's a tricky concept, because sometimes by doing what you want, like, you don't want to go over certain boundaries, you know? Like, you don't want to, like, it's extreme and dark, but you don't want to say, well, I like to, like, date young girls, you know, or, like, some really pedophile, like, things like that, because that's what you want, you know? So there's got to be some integrity in yourself, I think, to apply your own borders. Yeah. That's going to get dark. But
that's just brutally honest, isn't it? It's just that brutal honesty coming out again. It's there's so, I think there's so much that goes on in a human being's mind that will never see the light of day. It's in that mind, and it will go to the grave in that mind. And
oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it's, I think one of the things that I've just kind of thought about now is that, you know, when you're a child, you think that when you grow up and you become an adult, you think that your thinking will change, like when you're a child, and then you become an adult, and then you realize that it doesn't. You're still that same child thinking.
Just with more experience.
Just with more experience. Yeah, like I don't know, you think about, you know, when you're young, when you're primary school and you got your school teachers and you're so pure. in your thinking, right?
Mm.
And then you think, when I get to their age,
Too honest.
yeah, and then when I get to their age, I'm going to think differently, because they're an adult and they've got this, just kind of changing a bit of tact here. So sort of similar but slightly different is pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, even though we're still in the pandemic. My thinking's changed drastically. So before the pandemic began, I'm very straight down the line. Laws are laws, rules are rules.
Before? Is this like pre-pandemic?
Pre-pandemic. And then during the pandemic, when they're changing rules and laws, sometimes on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah.
And then you realize, there's a human being
making decisions.
Making decisions that affect all of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these decisions make no sense.
Yeah.
They literally make no sense. I don't know if I told you last time, but
so many examples.
There was a time during the pandemic where two unvaccinated people were allowed to meet outside, but during that time they weren't allowed to play tennis. So you're allowed to be unvaccinated. You've got a physical net separating two of you, but you can't play tennis.
Larger distance between.
And then the next day they realized how stupid the rule was. So they changed it that you could play tennis, but you're not allowed to use the public toilet at the tennis court. But you could walk 200 meters down the road to the McDonald's public toilets and use their toilets.
That's where the rule, that's why you got to be conscious of the effect of policing, over-policing, or just even policing.
But it just brought to my attention, right, that we live in a world where human beings with emotions and lived experiences and opinions, different experiences,
different perspectives,
and they're making rules that affect all of our lives. And some of these rules they're making are not right. And another rule that was just crazy at the time was we weren't allowed to go to regional Victoria at one point.
For a long time, yeah.
But at the same time,
they could come in.
When New South Wales had more COVID cases than Victoria, they were allowed to come into regional Victoria. But regional Victoria is right on our back doorstep where we live.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to go there.
So many contradictions.
But someone from Sydney, when there's more COVID, is allowed to go there.
Oftentimes with COVID.
And this is when my whole thinking changed during the pandemic. Because before the pandemic, there's all these laws that are in place.
Well, you trusted in the
system. And some of these laws have been in place for many years. And I followed every law to the nth of a degree, 100%. And then
with respect. Yeah.
With respect. And then it's just brought to my attention that this whole system is in place, made by vulnerable human beings with strong opinions and whatever, and making these rules that affect everyone. And I'm just like, nah, there's a flaw. There's a flaw in the system. And so my whole way of thinking has shifted now. So I used to be sort of more left.
Yeah.
And now
you're like in the middle?
I'm sort of in the middle and even more slightly to the right. So even just slightly right of centre. And I'm just it's amazing how this 2.5 years
drastic
has drastically fundamentally changed the way that I think.
Yeah.
And I've observed you've observed the whole spectrum of society during these times. And there's other close friends of mine who were on the same page as me in their thinking at the start of the pandemic, before the pandemic, and they're still that person. So they're still there, but I'm no longer there. I'm here, but they're still there. And and I will be there now for the rest of my life till the day that I die. I'm going to be that person who questions, who was in charge of making that rule at that time, and what was
Holding accountability.
what was their lived experience? What was their opinion on life? What was their political standing? What was their financial standing? What were all of these factors that were involved in them making that decision? That's a law that now affects the whole entire country. Because at the end of the day, there's a tiny group of human beings that literally decide the rules and the regulations and the laws for everyone. And some of these aren't fair. They're not.
Oh,
They're not fair. And so I question now. Before, I never.
they're not fair for the majority, which,
And
defeats the purpose, isn't it?
And the
In
whole
a democracy.
the whole like vaccination thing, man. The whole let's mandate vaccinations and let's segregate society so that if you don't follow our law, you can't go to here or there, and it's not right.
Freedoms.
It's not right. And also, Novak Djokovic, what happened with him, I think, is really indicative of how much power
Tyrannical
one human
behavior.
being can have over the entire society. So he followed the rules. He did legally what he needed to do, and he got into the country as a result of that. Once he was in the country, he was challenged that he was in the country for wrong reasons, and they found out he wasn't vaccinated, whatever. He went to the Supreme Court, the highest court in Australia, that ruled in his favour. The highest court. One person in the country can overrule the Supreme Court, and that one person, who's the minister, decided to overrule the Supreme Court ruling. I don't believe that's right. I don't think one individual should have that much power. And that's where I completely disagree with the system. And that whole experience. And then the positive that's come out of that whole experience is the light that it shone on the immigration system, which
The flaws there.
is so flawed, man, and how they incarcerate these people who have fled life and death, war-torn type situations to seek a better life, and then they're politicized and used as political pawns to be made an example of, so that people in the future don't do what they've done, which
Deters people away. Yeah?
deters people away. But it's not going to deter people away, because if you're in the same circumstances that these people who are already incarcerated in the country have experienced, I'm gonna stay in the country and risk my life and death, or I'm gonna go to Australia and
Same thing.
it's the same thing. So
Better chance
Better-
just to go, which is sending the wrong message again.
Yeah, but we are one world. As far as we know, humans only exist on Earth, as far as we know. We've got all these countries on this planet, but we're one Earth, man. We're the human race. And there's all these rules and all these laws and all these things with different countries and that. Dude, we are just one planet with one people. We should all be supporting each other. And
Why don't we?
Why don't we? And then these poor people who are caught in the crosshairs of these political decisions, and they're the ones who suffer. And some of these people, they've been living in hotels for like 7-8 years, and that's 8 years of their life getting back to time, the most precious thing. 8 years of their life that they've been deprived, that they could have made a difference in Australia and society.
Sure.
So yeah, the whole sort of pre-pandemic and now where I am now in terms of how I think, my whole perspective has changed.
Oh,
man.
I could tell.
Completely changed.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend of mine who was recently over from New Zealand, this guy called Paul, and his father was a successful lawyer in New Zealand, and he has been to court multiple times, and he has never been charged, convicted. So he's had multiple times where he's had to go to court to contest something that they've charged him for. And he's a very smart guy, and he's never ever had a conviction, like ever. And having that conversation with him, it amplifies the system that we're all living in, that has been designed by a select few with a biased opinion, politically, financially, career-wise, whatever, that have got them into that position to make these rules, and we're all affected by it, and it's just not right. I don't.
So that brings up an important question. What kind of system would you suggest, or what would it look like? Because I'm pretty passionate about this subject too. So for myself, I'll let you speak and then I'll share. So what does it look like? What does the answer look like?
For me, I think it's the community is the most important thing, and having a community where you're close with your neighbours and you help each other out.
But how do you achieve that?
You bring the bins in, man.
But do you force people to do it? Do you know what I mean? What does that kind of system look like? Or even is it a system?
A lot of it is organic. It just kind of evolves naturally.
I believe that.
But it comes back to action. So, you've still got it's raining outside, but I can see the bin there. And even though I don't want to go outside and get wet, I'm still going to open the door and I'm going to go and I'm going to bring the bin in. And my neighbour's bin. And that tiny little action can make a massive difference. So just through that menial task, we have a very close relationship with our immediate neighbour. We don't have a close relationship with the other neighbour due to other circumstances, which hopefully will change. But every other neighbour on this side, we have good relationships with, and it comes down to taking action, whether it is taking a bin in, whether it's about lending a lawnmower, sharing a bottle of wine, even just knocking on the door and saying hi, how you going? Taking time, the most precious thing that we have, to knock on the door and just check in and say hi and that kind of thing. I think.
Yeah, I appreciate those sorts of things, but I'm thinking, what about the people that don't want to do those things? Are they going to be deemed as like bad for society?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got to respect each individual. But then, is there a reason why they don't want to? Is there something deeper that we don't know about? Do we want to?
Everyone's different.
Everyone's different.
Going to have their own little reasons.
Yeah.
Different perspectives, different circumstances, and that's why I'm a big advocate of free market capitalism.
Yeah.
Not crony capitalism, because right now it's not true capitalism. So what that is like the negatives of free market capitalism is when the transition happens, it's a bit brutal. So that you're going to have some winners and some losers. But that's the transitional period that we learn organically what the right way to do things. And you're going to have that from time to time. Every time we advance and every time we try to figure something out, you're going to potentially have some losses in there. So I think that's the negative to the free market capitalism system that I advocate. But to me, that's the most purest, most honest, and most organic way to evolve as people. And so what free market capitalism is essentially is it's like voting with your decisions, voting with your dollar. Because everyone's different, you're going to have different groups of people that like this, different groups of people that like that, different people, like just so diverse that I don't believe that a government body is going to be able to facilitate for all these different things. But with everyone's actions and human behavior, organically, it's going to work itself out. So the way that you can figure out interest rates, prices, is determined by what actually happens in the market. So you can keep prices down, you can keep prices steady and fair. That's for everything based on the market.
Yeah.
And the market is, well, if this large group of people decide that they love to do this and they're willing to do it for this price, that's the fair market rate. But right now, when you have governments involved, they apply all these little things like, subsidies, which sounds like it helps, but it actually hurts people.
Yeah.
Because you're subsidizing industries that take advantage. So in a free market society, you're not essentially you can't cheat because you get what you get from what the market will give you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
there's a bit of that going on at the moment. So I don't know if you're aware, but the government has put a subsidy in to sort of support business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you spend a minimum of $40, I think on certain days like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in the city, you can get 25% back. So you spend $100 and you get like $25 back. So, I think that's going against what your sort of view is because...
Yeah. Well, where does that money come from too?
From us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're paying to subsidise, those things from the government.
It's almost immoral too because the government is spending billions of dollars, but people don't ask where those billions of dollars come from.
No.
And then they have, the audacity to give themselves pay rises and select people in position, and it becomes very political. So now their why, collectively, doesn't consider the country or the state. It's all about the parties. We're in this together, and they get all political. And so I think that hurts. It hurts countries. It hurts collective groups. It hurts the planet because of this,
100%. Like, you just think... You think of how much money, like in dollar-wise, that we pay in tax every single time we get paid.
Like annually, it's billions.
Thousands.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean collectively.
Collectively, yeah. But it's a lot of money, and
that's a lot of resources that are being wasted. Like I follow this guy, Peter Schiff. I love the way that he explains a lot of things through his analogies, and he's got one where he says the government, the way that it distributes resources, taxes, you get taxes in and then it distributes it out to things. What it's like is, it's like if the government was doing like a blood transfer from one arm to the other and spilling half of it on the floor.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so
the waste
true.
of, like, that's what these sort of government systems are producing is like wasted resources that could go reinvest back into society for better, you know? We could eliminate these things like homelessness and starvation, or, you know, or like lack of water resources, you know? And I think so far, free market capitalism to me fits, like, probably out of everything that I've come across, is probably the best one so far. It's not perfect, and that's what I love to talk about with people, to figure out, like, how can we improve upon that, you know?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I think there's no easy sort of answer for it.
Yeah.
I think Monaco, you know, Monaco. So I don't think there's any income tax there. It's like a tax haven. So, you know, a lot of the, you know, successful business, sporting people, they live there. But how
that entices businesses, and then they use their resources and it feeds back into itself, you know?
Yeah. So they're basically, I suppose, instead of having a government tax your money and then having the government choose where your money is spent, I suppose the people who live there have more say in terms of where the money goes because it's their money.
Yeah, and it's not a conscious decision too. It's just because everyone's different. They're just living their lives organically, you know, and everything's adjusting organically. That's what I love about the free market side of things.
Yeah, it's
controversial though, I know.
No, it's I agree. You know, like
it's more organic.
I was just thinking of Kerry Packer when they decided to take him to court for tax evasion, and they never successfully convicted him. You know, he basically said, he's got a good accountant, and anyone who pays more tax than they should needs to have their head read, because, you know, I don't want a government spending money, my hard-earned tax dollars, on things that are wasteful. Basically, that's what he said in the courtroom, and he's right. And he's right. Yeah. We should be doing everything that we possibly can
to preserve.
And bring the power back to us in terms of how we spend our money.
Yeah.
There is a lot of wastage, and you know, all the bureaucratic positions in government where people are paid exorbitant amounts of money, and what are they actually doing? You know, like
spending other people's money.
Yeah, like how are they actually physically contributing to society?
You're doing more by talking to a homeless person than they are in there, you know, on Capitol Hill.
100%
equivalent.
Yeah. No, it's. I've got a friend of mine who I used to work with many years ago. She's like an MP in New Zealand now for East Coast Bays, and you know, she's opened up a brand new supermarket in her electorate where she works, and had her name on a plaque, and
nice.
You know, flies down to Wellington every other week and does all the parliamentary stuff, and it's like, I don't know, you know, she gets paid a lot of money and gets a lot of perks, and probably works hard, but like
the people or for the job.
Yeah, I think for the people, for her. I think for her, she's sort of born and bred in her electorate, so she's never lived anywhere else, and she's very passionate. So coming back to the passion, so I think she found her why, and she found out she's very, very passionate about Okura is the name of where she lives, and because she was able to find that why, you know, she's
helped her excel.
Yeah. and
Hopefully
she's
it's helped the community.
exactly. And I've seen firsthand her passion, just in the workplace, and I can see her living that passionate life by representing her community where she's always lived. But she's like maybe an exception to the rule. I don't know, like why do people get into politics? You'd like to think they get into politics to make a difference, a positive difference in people's lives, but is that actually the case?
Oh, you get career politicians too.
Yeah. Winston Peters.
Most of them, most people in politics now, career politicians.
We're basically funding them essentially for their entire life.
When they leave and retire, they still get paid a lot of times,
Oh, man. And, the travel, like...
Yeah, everything associated, I think. Where does that money come from,
Yeah. The hotels, the dinners, the drinks.
Everything.
The drinks.
It all adds up,
The wine.
Wine.
It's our tax dollars, man. It's paying for their wine out on, out on a dinner, and it's, I think wastage is definitely, a word that needs to be discussed, and in terms of politically with these people making decisions on how our hard-earned tax dollars are spent.
That's why I'm a big advocate of the free market, because it's more efficient,
Yeah.
Pretty much in all aspects. The only thing I have a little issue is probably like the policing, like actual police force and what do you call it? Like just national defense side of things. I'm not sure how that kind of looks like in a free market society. So I'm still trying to figure out how it could work. Yeah. But like on the surface, like student loans, wouldn't really exist.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't exist, but it wouldn't be like it is today. People are paying 30, 50, 100,000 for studies, only to end up in jobs that probably pay less than that.
Before discovering their why, and there's no passion. There's no passion,
and then they probably pivot by the end of the studies and want to become an artist when they study to be a doctor.
Yeah,
But then now they're like 100K in debt. So then that doesn't help the whole thing. But I mean, that's all learning, it's all learning.
Yeah.
It's just an expensive lesson.
It's so true. It's so true. I've actually got a student loan myself. So,
I mean, in this day and age, almost everyone's got student debt.
Yeah. It's sort of part of.
Again, that goes back to the whole government getting involved, and backing these government-funded loans, which pushed up the price because people get told, well, you're not going to, the government's going to fund most of it, so you pretty much just sign your name and don't even look at the price a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, there'd be a lot of New Zealanders living in Australia that will never go back to New Zealand because of the student debt. And I was in the category. I was a little bit irresponsible, I suppose.
Oh, me too.
First moved over here, and then they started arresting people.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
like overseas or
in New Zealand?
Oh, in New Zealand, yeah.
So people
arresting people.
Yeah, at the airport.
Oh, trying to get out.
Just so they'll come home and they'll check the passport, and then there's a this guy owes $50,000 in student loan.
Oh, you still couldn't get out back then?
Well,
I thought there was like a thing that Helen Clark put in that if you leave, you got to pay interest.
Yeah.
Maybe something changed.
No. That's automatic. But so when I moved to Melbourne, I didn't set up a payment plan, and then subsequently accumulated a lot of debt, which I've nearly paid off now.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, man, there was no system between Australia and New Zealand to have a tax code so that if you get a job in this country and you tick a box, I've got a student loan in New Zealand, and then a portion of that goes to New Zealand to pay off your debt. And it was basically left up to the individual to make payments.
Yeah. That's what I recall, yeah.
And then you had to pay an international transaction fee
Yeah.
every single time you made a payment. So, and I think that was about $20. So $20 to make a payment every
Each
single
time.
Yeah. And it's like, that's kind of a disincentive to make a payment. So anyway, I was a bit irresponsible, left it. And anyway, my debt turned into like a $50,000 debt.
Oh, just like that, eh?
Boom. And then we bought land and built the house, and then the bank must talk to the New Zealand IRD. So they sent a ping basically saying, this guy's got money because he's bought land, he's building a house.
Maybe there's like a threshold. I don't know.
But I've got another friend who a similar experience happened to him. He bought a place in Sydney, and then he was tracked down and had a phone call from the IRD department, and exactly the same thing. But at the end of the day...
we wouldn't have these sorts of extremes had the government not got involved in a lot of these things, you know?
Yeah. And, you know...
We probably wouldn't have left.
No. And I think, you know, we're definitely living in in different times, because our parents, you know, university education was free. So
practically free, yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely changed when
less government intervention back then.
Yeah. So
because you can only charge the market what they're willing to pay, you know? But when you get a government involved and they start creating money, it's essentially inflation.
Yeah.
It's like it's an inflation tax by creating money, you know? Yeah. You flood the market with your own currency. You pay for programs. You get votes because you're doing a good thing. But then underneath, it's like prices are rising. Cost of living is rising. People are getting priced out of things. And then it happens again. Create more money. I wouldn't say pretend, but, you know, with that, you basically cause the problem, and then you add to the problem and you present it as a solution. And so it becomes like a cycle.
Yeah.
And it compounds over time, and then you end up in a catastrophe like we are.
I think, yeah, I'd be interested to know whether like student debt has changed the perception of a lot of people in terms of whether they decide to make the decision to go to university.
Oh, yeah.
Like seeing, you know, I think New Zealand's got about $2 billion worth of student debt, unpaid student debt. Are people coming out of school seeing these kind of figures and thinking, you know, do I want to be a part of that? Like, do I really want to put myself in a position like all these other people are?
Yeah. I would say so, yeah. And that's another reason why you have like a larger percentage of international students, you know, because they're coming from a different place, you know. They're coming from places where, like you said, you know, the perception of the status and what you gain from the status is important. So they're coming from these countries like, okay, I need to get in there. The government's allowing me to do it and rack up all this debt. So, yeah, in these universities, you see less and less like local people in in university,
Yeah.
and it's going to continue to the point where it's just going to be all international, which it already kind of feels like that's the case. And the universities, they target international students because that's where the money is now.
That's where the money is. Well, that's how my wife ended up in Australia. So she kind of decided at a very early age that she wanted to come to Australia. And then she went to Melbourne Uni and did her Masters and did her CPA and did all that here. And maybe it is like a prestige thing for her, like to be able to come to a university like Melbourne, which is quite internationally recognised. And there's so much competition. Like, it's just the competition with China and India. You know, you've got these countries that are over 1 billion people, and they've got these
nearly 2.5 combined.
Yeah, and then you've got
it's like a third of the whole world.
Yeah, and you've got these families with these very high expectations of their children and
cultural beliefs too.
Cultural beliefs. You need to be a doctor. You need to be a scientist.
For the family, to make me proud.
Yeah.
You need to be successful to make me proud.
You need to live my dream for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than you live your dream for you, you need to live my dream for you.
Which is a cultural thing. There's a cultural difference.
Yeah. And that's where, the passion gets put to the wayside. Because
you see it so many, there
is no passion question. It's like, this is the path. And is it to the point where, like, consciously they're not even aware that they can make a decision because it's been ingrained into them from such an early age that it's just their life. They're not even aware that there's another possibility.
Well, there's a missing
path.
thing, an emptiness.
Yeah,
that doesn't get addressed.
And then it doesn't, and then that doesn't get realized. Until
later.
Sometimes you've been educated, you're in a job. 10 years into the job, 20 years into the job.
Before you realise, hold on.
This isn't what I want to do. This is what my parents wanted me to do.
Yeah. It's like you got an empty, like a hole. But you continue on because you think, oh, well, when I achieve that position and that job and that, that master's or whatever, that's the piece that's going to fit here. And then they get to that part and then they find that, that piece is not fitting, Where does this piece actually fit? And then they go on their own little quest.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And that brings up sort of another sort of point in life as well, is that there's all these targets, man, right? Oh, yeah, we'll do this. It's like people don't realize that us being in this room right now talking, mate, this is life. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, yeah, but when we get to this target...
This is what it's about.
This is what it's about.
Yeah.
It's like seeing us in our, real-time, pure emotional states without targets, without, we're not thinking, oh, like in half an hour's time we need to get to this. It's like...
Crescendo.
Yeah. There's no agenda. Like it was just is.
There's an agenda, but it's
not a formal one.
It's a clear vision,
Yeah.
Whereas targets are like not superficial, but arbitrary.
Yeah.
Wise. That it's like a tool to communicate to a group of people to perform, but then they're performing to address someone else's why, because someone else has got a why. Someone owns their business.
Yes.
Someone has a purpose that they want to achieve. So they've got a why. They've gone through all these mistakes. They've gone through all these channels. They've gone through all this people and resources, and they've now got a team, a business. And so what they do is they apply like targets to help their why. But it's more arbitrary, you know. It's not a bad thing, but targets is just a communication tool.
Mm.
And it's like a sub why, you know. It's like you're in this group, you have your own why. Like a group of individuals is a company is just a group of individuals that come together, but each individual, they've got their own reasons to be there.
Yeah.
So they're already dealing with their own whys.
Yeah.
And then you got one person or a partnership or a group that has their why that's essentially controlling that group.
Yeah.
And so to communicate to that group, they use things like targets and, you know, incentives. It's just part of the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's. I've got a quote to read you, man, that I've just thought about.
I remember your last quote too.
Do you remember it?
Yeah. Well, one of the quotes that you said last time we were here.
Can you remember it? Can you recite it?
It was a dark one though.
Was it?
It was about a lady and her brother. And the brother went through life accomplishing things, had goals, worked out, did well in his job, had family and friends supportive, but he still took his life.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
So it's like it's a sickness.
Yeah.
So you can, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, exercise and you'll feel better. But it's not always the case, you know. And that was an example of someone had all those things, but still ended up in that predicament.
Yeah.
So we have to be a bit more sympathetic and understanding.
Yeah. 100%. I want to read this one out to you. So the ego says, once everything falls into place, I'll feel peace. The soul says, find your peace, and then everything will fall into place.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool, man? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So true.
Because the ego,
that outlines pretty much our conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, it's just be in the moment and enjoy what we have and
just recognizing.
Recognize it, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like you shouldn't be thinking, you know, oh, yeah, you know, we're having this good podcast and then I'm going to edit it and we're going to put it on YouTube. People are going to do this. Let's just enjoy the moment for what it is and be happy in it right here. Like, we don't have to think about what's going to happen in an hour's time or 5 hours or tomorrow or next week. Let's just enjoy the purity of the moment that we're in right now. And we know we don't have to achieve something. We don't have to, you know, we can just enjoy being and have that peace. And then everything else is going to fall into place.
That's it, man. That's it.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah. That's like what I was saying. It just outlines two scenarios here. It's like majority of people are clouded. Like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want. And that's the first part of that quote. It's like having this expectation, oh, once this happens, then everything's going to be good. Just like the doctor reaching status and doing education. But then the second part of that is going back to the figure out your why first, figure out your passions, figure out who you are, and address that honestly with yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
And that's the peace, that's the path of peace once you've done that. So, oh man, I love that quote.
Yeah. It's a good one, isn't it?
It just like summed up our like 2-hour conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as soon as I saw it, because we all want to be at peace, man.
Oh, yeah.
We all want to be at peace, and we all think that.
I think we all want to feel some form of fulfillment. But there's no one size fits all solution.
We need to figure out the why as the first
and it's
step.
going to be different, it's going to be different to the next person. That's why I love to travel. People, when they travel, you see more.
Yeah. And
opens your mind, broadens your mind.
Yeah, different cultures though.
Different ways of thinking. It's like your mind is a muscle, like your brain's a muscle. And when you travel, you're doing different exercises.
Yeah.
You're
getting
subjecting yourself to different stretches, different movements when you travel.
Yeah.
Are
you going to be traveling again anytime soon?
I hope so. Yeah. I want to go everywhere, but yeah. Not sure where to next.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
I'll be going back to New Zealand. I've got to go see my family. Both my parents haven't been in the best health, so I want to see them. See my sister, my two sisters, and niece and nephew, and some friends, and then
whereabouts? Where do they live?
So Mum lives in Coopers Beach, far north. Dad lives in Auckland. My sister, two sisters live in Auckland, and then Sophie, she's got two aunties that live in Wellington. I've got another auntie that lives in Nelson. So
that'll be good. Eh?
Yeah, I'm
travel around while you're there.
Yeah, do a bit of leisure stuff, maybe down the South Island, and then do all the family and friend stuff, and then come back and decide what the next sort of adventure is going to be. I'd love to go to France and and Spain and Italy,
Champagne.
Yeah, just see physically these places that I'm learning about, and
it's the best.
Yeah, and experience like the cultures and the different ways of thinking, like you said. It's
just the experience of being in the presence with all your senses.
Yeah. You really do expand your mind when you're in another country. It opens up a whole new world. I found that when I went to India and China, and I'm sure it'll be the same when we go to Europe and experience some of the culture over there. It'll be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Nice, that's a nice one. You've been to Nice?
No.
You haven't been to Europe, sorry.
Yeah.
But so many places you got to go to.
Yeah.
Europe's a nice one because you can just so accessible to get everywhere.
It's easy to get. You just drive to a different country, eh?
Oh, train I think is a common one.
Yeah.
Just train from country to country.
Yeah, I think it's important to travel when we're young as well, and we're physically sort of healthy. Because I know that my father, he's done a lot of travelling, and he's been to Africa multiple times and sort of wanted to go back, but he's too old now. And
really?
Yeah, he's sort of 81, I think. He's just had his 81st birthday. And, he might come to Australia, but further than that, probably not.
Takes a toll on your physical.
Yeah.
And then mental.
And even, with COVID and stuff, like, even though he's vaccinated, he's probably at the vulnerable sort of stage.
Yes, yeah.
So, we need to make the most when we're this age and see as much of the world as we can. Because, we will get to a point where, physically it's going to be harder for us.
Yeah, more challenging.
Yeah, and you must think... I know I certainly do. I really appreciate the travelling I was able to do before COVID hit, because it was a different world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot different, man. Like when you decide to
For
go
a long time, man.
for a long time. I've got friends I've got one friend who's just come back from Vietnam, and it's a different world now. Traveling, it's you need to do so much preparation now, and you need to find out the boxes that need to be ticked and the forms that need to be filled out and you've got to be very thorough in your preparation, whereas before, do I need a visa? Yeah, get a ticket, get a visa, that's it. It's a different world we're living in. So
one aspect I'm conscious about with regards to travel is the experience of the travel. So I think if I was to go back to like a country that I've already been to,
yeah,
the experience is going to be a lot different because of the social and economical impact COVID has had on the world, So you might go back to a place and a lot of shops are closed down, a lot of services are no longer available.
Yeah.
And then just even the whole demeanor of people could be slightly different. So I'm just thinking more from like an experience point of view. Right now, if I was to travel around, the experience would be similar to that, So I'm still trying to apply patience and just wait till things smooth out a bit more until people, industries kind of get back on their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just a bit conscious of that too, the experience of things. 'Cause, when you want to travel around for experience, you don't want to go to a place expecting to do certain activities when they no longer exist,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so true.
Just want to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Still will have a pleasant, and memorable experience, I'm sure,
Yeah.
But I'm just going to wait for a little bit before I start to travel around to far away places.
I think that's a good thing. And also, the price, I think, will come down, hopefully, once the airline industry reestablishes all of its old roots prior to COVID, and, the competition comes back. And because at the moment, you're paying peak prices traveling pretty much anywhere. So it's a lot more expensive right now. But hopefully, once the airline industry is sort of back in full swing and you're getting capacity planes and routes and hopefully, the Russia-Ukraine energy crisis will sort itself out sooner than later. No.
I think that's like two different issues, personally.
Yeah.
Because I'm like my whole understanding of like inflation, like prices rising is a byproduct. It's an effect from inflating your currency.
Yeah.
And that's what most of the countries did, they
printed more money.
They printed more money, they expanded the money supply to pay for programs, to pay for stay at home, this and that. You got COVID, stay at home, we get paid like billions and trillions of countries' own currency just inflated in there. And so the effect is higher prices,
Yeah.
because you've got more in circulation now. So prices are going to be rising, and they were rising anyway because the whole America thing, cheap money. It's a thing that I've been following for a number of years, and I was expecting this sort of thing to happen, and COVID just pretty much blew the whole like lid off what's going on.
Yeah.
So, but then the Russia and the Ukraine thing, that's a very like sensitive topic, because it's like who do you
believe?
Yeah, who do you trust? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just it. I think mainstream media, not only in the conflict but in all areas of our life, are going to have a massive influence on public perception
Mhm.
because that's where we get our news from.
Yeah.
And depending on who owns that mainstream media and the point of view that they're wanting to put out there, you're going to see a very different view of the world. And, we see a lot of how Ukraine is being affected, but what we don't see is,
The other story.
the other side of the story, because there's definitely another side of the story.
Yeah. No, there
But
definitely is.
we don't have any light shone on that through the mainstream media. So unless...
And that happens on both sides too, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it just goes back to how much power people like Rupert Murdoch have had previously, which is now watered down with the technological age we live in, because we're no longer relying on a news agency to get news anymore. We can rely on
so many different sources.
We can rely on human beings who were who were there to put a tweet out. I've just been in the street in Ukraine and the Russian tanks come
Live
down. Boom.
Footage.
Yeah. So their power is no longer what it used to be. It's still there, but it's just a watered down version of what it used to be. But I love the fact that you and I can take a phone overseas and take a video and then
Instant.
straight out there and
Then it's connected basically wherever you have internet connection.
yeah, and it's good. I think it's very truthful. It's you
More
can't
transparent.
you can't manipulate it. It's just raw footage, and that's where that whole George Floyd incident came about, because if we weren't living in the technological age that we currently are, no one would have hit that. That would have that's probably a regular thing that has occurred before.
That's the scary thing about it.
Yeah. So, but that only now we're able to shine a light on it, and
It's got the attention.
It's got the attention, and then
People have spoken up.
yeah, which is a good thing. It's I think it's a lot of positive sort of stuff have come out of it. It needed to happen, and we need to make the police accountable for their actions. And it was a very powerful sort of thing to see. Basically, a guy losing his life for having a police officer kneel on his neck for 7 minutes, and we saw that in real time in a video that we would never normally see through mainstream media, because you have to be there in the moment. You can't have a news story and then wait for a reporter to travel to the location and then take a video.
But more importantly, there'll be a filter. There'll be some producer saying yes or no, depending on
the perspective they're wanting to portray.
Yeah. And the connections that they'll have with, is it going to affect this company? Is it going to affect the law firm and the government? And maybe the mayor won't like this, those sorts of things.
You get, the pro sort of police, law enforcement, mainstream media organisations that are going to focus on what happened prior to that, and then this person's like a drug
and that's
dealer.
why he died.
Yeah, exactly. However they're going to paint it.
He cheated in his exams when he was like 7th grade.
Yeah,
painting a bad picture. He stole some candy.
Yeah, it's
and he passed away. Next story.
Yeah, it's quite scary to think how much power, Like how much power, like literally
propaganda.
The power to basically choose the government that you want. I want you to be in power, and I'm going to use all of my newspapers and all of my power
to ensure what they've been doing.
that you become the next prime minister of the country.
And that's still a problem.
Yeah. It's just no, and that goes back to what I said before as well. Like, no one individual should have that much power. Like, whether you're a minister making the decision, overruling a Supreme Court decision as to whether a tennis player comes in the country or not, or whether you are a media mogul tycoon that owns every other media outlet in the world and gets to decide who goes on the pages of all those.
And what you're seeing...
No one should have that much power and influence.
Unless it's a public company, I think.
Yeah.
Because then it's just... Oh, not public company, private company, sorry.
Yeah.
Because then, like, if it's private, I mean, that's your own personal thing. Like, not everyone has to subscribe to your thing.
Like Elon with Twitter?
Yeah, it's going to become private. But then not everyone has to go on Twitter. Like, there's competition. Yeah. That's the beauty of competition. Is like, if you don't like Elon and what he does, and if you don't like free speech, I mean, there's competition, which is the beautiful part about having the freedom to choose, you know?
The thing that I like about Twitter at the moment is that there is no edit button. We get to see the drawing of my wife, and my wife's drawing of me in its raw state. I don't get to go repaint that and make it prettier. I just draw it in the moment and put it out there into the world, and that's it. And I like that Twitter's like that at the moment. I think bringing in an edit button, it's going to change it, because you're going to...
That's one of the things. I haven't followed the story too closely, but I did hear something about an edit button.
The flaws are going to be removed, man. I like the flaws, because the flaws are real. The flaws are human. The flaws are in the moment. That's what it was in that moment. And then to be able to edit that, it's like, it's not raw. It's no longer raw. It's no longer in the moment. It's no longer came out of your brain and into your fingers and onto that keypad and onto that tweet, because you can actually think about it retrospectively and then go and change it again. So it's no longer raw. So it removes that rawness.
Yeah, I understand that.
It removes that rawness to it.
Yeah, I like the rawness too.
Because you're actually analysing it. And then when you're analysing it, it's no longer raw.
But you can still delete though, yeah? A tweet?
I think you can delete. Yeah. But I love the fact how it is at the moment, where even spelling mistakes, man. Because it's human.
Yeah.
I like it, you know?
Sometimes there's context in the spelling mistakes too, eh?
Yeah. And then, they might misspell a word, or they might leave a word out completely.
Yeah.
And it's just, it gets you into the mind of that person in the moment when they sent that tweet.
They must have rushed.
When they sent that tweet. Remember the one where Donald Trump sent, and it was like like a covfefe. You heard of it? Covfefe?
I've heard of that, yeah, but I don't know, like the origins.
So basically, he put this tweet out in the moment, right? And then, once it's out there, you can't edit it, right? Mm-hmm. So then he tried to justify that there
What happened?
That there was actually a meaning to that. It was fucking hilarious, man.
Why not? Covfefe. I've heard of that. I don't know what it means.
Tweet. I'll see if I can find that. Tweet. Yeah, Covfefe.
How do you spell it?
So Covfefe. So he tweeted that, right? And he obviously made a mistake, right? He fucked up something, like maybe he was trying to say coffee or whatever. Yeah. And then anyway, because he couldn't edit it,
he made a meaning out of it.
He didn't want to look bad, right? He didn't want to look bad. So then, no, I meant to say that. You know what I mean? I meant to spell it that way. And then
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
And then we get to see him and his pure rawness. he can't go edit. Oh yeah, Kavivi, let's just
But
check
what
it out.
did he give a meaning, or is it like a secret meeting?
Man,
Meaning.
it's got a Wikipedia, bro.
That's cool.
So, Kavivi is a misspelling widely presumed to be a typo that Donald Trump used in a viral tweet when he was the US president. It instantly became an internet meme. 6 minutes after midnight. See, I love this. So 6 minutes after midnight.
Yeah, context.
Context. It gets you into his brain.
Probably just like fried in his mind and needs coffee.
Yeah. And
maybe speculating.
Despite the constant negative press, Kavivi, he deleted the tweet 6 hours later and implied that its wording was intentional.
All right. So what does it mean?
Most media outlets presume that he had meant to type coverage.
Oh, coverage.
Yeah, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer stated, I think the president and a small group of people know exactly what he meant. But he came out, he's like, no, I intentionally meant to type it that way.
Right.
Even though that word doesn't exist, man. But I love that about Twitter. You can't retrospectively go back and edit things. We see it. And by him spelling it as he did in the moment,
yeah, I like it too. Yeah.
It opens up a world into his mind, his state of mind in the moment.
It's all right.
Yeah, I love that.
But one thing I'm thinking about is not everyone likes what we like. So what about those people that don't like to make mistakes and they want to be perceived?
They want to look good.
They want to fix a mistake if they felt like it was an accidental mistake. What about those people?
See, we don't live in a perfect world, man. And without an edit button, I think is reflective of the imperfect world that we live in. And then by introducing an edit button, it takes away the realness and the rawness. And we're going to see the world in a completely different light because you're going to get people that will make a mistake initially, and then they're going to have this opportunity to edit what they made, and we're not going to be able to see the human in their imperfect state. Do you know? We're going to see human beings. It's going to be like a newspaper that's bloody edited before it goes to print. And that removes some of the human element to what that person is trying to communicate in the moment. So
no, I definitely share that likeness. Like I like raw and just, as an artist, like I don't plan anything when I paint. I just kind of go with the flow, and a lot of times like intentionally do something that looks messy, but I love it because like there's just an appreciation for how it turned out.
Yeah.
It's just like it came out and it's supposed to come out and I love it, you know? So I definitely share the same sort of like feeling towards the rawness, but I'm also sympathetic to people that want the edit button.
Yeah.
And then I bring it back to the importance of freedom to choose. So you should be able to choose not to edit all your mistakes.
Yes.
And be happy that you as a person and your own decision makings, that you don't edit.
Yeah.
But then the next person who wants to edit should also have the equal freedoms to choose to edit or not edit.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the whole kind of like openness to choose. But I still identify with the same things that you do too about the imperfect kind of actions that we do as humans. So there's going to be a group of us that like that.
Yeah.
And we won't, edit. But we also have to acknowledge that equally it's important for other people to make a decision if they want to.
Yes.
So that's my stance on that edit button. I don't know too much about this edit button thing.
Yeah.
It's not,
you should have
I
the
didn't
choice.
really know it was a thing, but
Yeah, it's going to be...
freedom to choose, I think. And the thing about the free market approach to things is, if most people don't use the edit button, over time, the edit button goes away.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting as well because now that Elon is going to privately own the company, he's previously had tweets of his that have been like moderated and deleted and that kind of thing. But now that he owns Twitter, he can say whatever he wants. So, but I think that the positive thing is that he's wanting a more balanced platform where even if your view may be considered extreme, he still wants those people to have the platform to be able to express themselves authentically with that right extreme or left extreme view. And then people can make up their minds how they want to interpret it.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when this guy Jack owned Twitter, you know, he's got his beliefs and his lived experience and his opinions, and based on those, he's making decisions as to whether some people get to tweet and some people don't get to tweet. And if they do get to tweet, selective. And they make a very good point. You know, they've removed Trump after what happened with the Capitol riots and stuff, but there's still people like Vladimir Putin who's invaded Ukraine. There's the supreme leader of Iran on Twitter. There's sort of Taliban leaders in Afghanistan on Twitter. So you've got people who have either directly or indirectly influenced life or death decisions on Twitter. And yet this guy, Jack, the former owner, made the choice to remove Donald Trump from Twitter according to his views and beliefs and viewpoints. Elon
He should still be allowed to do that, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
like morally, I'm speaking like morally, you can't really disagree with like that's not like a public thing, you know, like it was still like privately owned by certain shareholders. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I think he had, you know, the final say, even with the private shareholding, as to what happens and what doesn't happen. I think a lot of people are scared now that Elon has taken over, that he's going to allow, you know, every open slather,
like hate speech and stuff like that.
Maybe. And so they're really worried about how it's going to look. Now that he owns it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. It's definitely going to be different. But he wants the whole spectrum to have the opportunity to express themselves. So how he's going to navigate that is
yeah.
But I kind of, you know, I look forward to, you know, just like I read the entire spectrum now. So, and like I was getting back to before, like my thinking before the pandemic started was a lot different to how I think now. And there's an English commentator called Douglas Murray, who's very right-wing in his thinking. And during the race riots in America, a friend of mine started up an anti-racism group that we used to sort of get together on Zoom on a weekly basis and discuss things. And there was a book by this Douglas Murray called The Madness of Crowds that we all listened to, and then we kind of got together on a Zoom. We discussed it as a group. And back then, this was sort of at the start of the pandemic, my thinking was very different. And now he's just brought out another book, which I'll probably listen to today. I think it's called The War on the West or something. The War on the West, I think it's called. My thinking's changed. So I was not on the same page with him when we reviewed this book.
The first one, yeah, the crowds,
the
madness of crowds.
And during the course of the pandemic, with my scrutiny of these laws and things that have changed that I just don't agree with, now that my thinking's changed, I find that I'm more on the same page with him. Not with everything, but
similarities and beliefs.
Whereas before I thought that he was very controversial and everything that he's saying, I'm just so far this way on the spectrum.
Yeah.
But
it was important to see the other perspective.
Yeah. And I'm really interested to observe consciously with my self-awareness what
drives these thoughts and beliefs.
Well, just my experience of his next book, because my thinking's changed now. So the first time I listened to that first book, I was right here, and I was just, my brain was fighting itself throughout the whole book.
Yeah,
because it doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
But now that it's rewired during this 2 years in terms of the thinking, it's not going to be fighting itself like it was initially.
You're going to go into it more
I'm
open.
I'm going to go into it more. And it's going to be very interesting just to observe myself and the openness.
It's important to be open.
Yeah.
And it's good to know both sides, really, to make an informed decision on belief, personal belief.
Exactly. But I think the one thing that I've learned throughout this before the pandemic, I think there's a lot of people like me who've changed in thinking since, but if you're here, like if you're on either side, neither one wants to try and understand the thinking behind the other one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're right wing, you're completely closed off to the reason why the left wing thinks the way they do,
which is a flaw,
and vice versa. And that's why it's so clearly demarcated there between the two of them. It's just so important to be open to how the others think.
Yeah.
And until we can get a large portion of the world's population open to that possibility, there's always going to be wars. There's always going to be wars.
Yeah.
Because you're so black and white in your thinking to the point where sometimes your brain just doesn't have the ability to be able to
doesn't have all the information.
It doesn't have all the information and just doesn't, someone will be speaking on the opposite side of the spectrum that you support, and your brain is literally, it's literally, what's the best way to describe it? It's rejecting every word that's being said by that other person. So it's not even absorbing.
Yeah.
Because it's already made the decision that what you're saying is wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have the ability to absorb, like genuinely absorb that information because it's already decided that you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the
flaw.
world.
Yeah.
It's the world in a nutshell. And until we,
it's like you said, the title of that book, "The Madness of Crowds," is like you want to feel like you identify with a group. You want to feel like you're acknowledged in a group, and so you identify as I'm a leftist or I'm a right wing or I'm a this and I'm on that. So naturally, when you identify with a group, you've already identified with the opposites. And so you've because you've identified here, naturally you want to reject what you believe are your enemies or opponents.
Exactly.
And that's the flaw.
Yeah.
With these groups.
and it's literally how your brain is wired, because I know from my personal experience, like, you grow up, whether you're Labour, whether you're National, whatever the political sort of supporters of your parents, and if you
previous
grow up,
generations,
and you grow up in that household,
passed on the biasness.
Yeah, and your brain is literally wired to those principles, whether they be Labour or National.
Yeah, without actually
being
seeing
open.
it for yourself.
Yeah.
And hearing and absorbing the information to make an informed decision.
Exactly. And because those neural pathways have been formed, growing up with those perspectives of your parents and the generations ahead of you,
and your surroundings,
your brain's not wired to hear anything else but that. And that's why you're so opposed to the other thing, and you don't even have the ability to be able to absorb, because all the pathways are just like, nah, man, as soon as it hears red or blue or whatever, it's just
turn
like,
off.
Reject.
Yeah. There was like one of my former managers back in NZ, he said something that like was quite profound at the time, because back then I wasn't big in politics, especially New Zealand politics. And they were doing the whole, like Labour versus National. And my manager told me, he said, I'll never vote for National. And it just made me question, like never, like why? Like without even hearing the other, like what they had to offer.
Yeah.
He just automatically like, I'll never, like. So ever since then, I knew, like, okay, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. So you question that.
Yeah. Like in my mind, I questioned. I was like, never. Like, so now, because I rhetorically answered questioned it, it's made me kind of like explore this whole other area. Like, but what if this happens? Like, what if that happens? And then now I realize the importance of like hearing all aspects. And not to choose a side, but to choose like the idea over groups. So like you want the best, me talking to myself, like I want the best for people. You know? I want to be able to solve all these issues. So let's start asking where people think the solutions are. And regardless of where the source comes from, like absorb it, analyze it, and try to comprehend the pros and cons of an idea from everything. And sometimes, a lot of times, these groups, they share the same philosophies, but just maybe because it's coming from a different party, it has the reputation of something else, a reputation of blue or red or whatever. But focus on like the idea, which is like the why. Like, again, what do you want for the country? What do you want for the planet? Rather than I'm a left or right. Well, I'm here in the spectrum. Like, to me, I just pushed all that aside and just think, what are the solutions to what I think is important in this world? And just be open to hear everything and engage in dialogue, Because sometimes, a lot of times, I'll talk to someone who's very like left wing, and then when we start talking, sometimes we'll both get to a point where, oh, hold on, I need to think more about this because I didn't think that far, which is a good thing for both of us because we're both trying to comprehend the situation, and our goals are most likely the same thing. Like, obviously, we want the best for ourselves, our family, our community, our people, but we're just going in different paths and arriving at different locations.
Yeah.
So sharing is important, being open to share.
Yeah, and it's trying to, like on Twitter a couple of times, during the pandemic at the height of sort of all those race riots in the States and stuff, and you're just trying to shine a light on a different perspective, way of looking at it, and you can really see how ingrained the thinking is with some people, and they just don't have that ability to be open and see a different perspective. It's people have to learn that themselves. They can't be told, you're so close-minded, and why don't you try and
do it my way?
Yeah, or why don't you try and be open to a different way of looking at it? They need to come to that conclusion themselves, and for me, this pandemic has really opened my eyes up. Like
many people, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, I've just kind of been sleepwalking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Through my life, and I accept that every law that's been made is the right one, and even it's made me look at police enforcement differently. Because what happened in the States with George Floyd, and also what happened in Melbourne, like Daniel Andrews turned Melbourne into a police state and authorised excessive force, rubber bullets, and
going to people's houses and arresting.
Yeah.
For
incitement.
Yeah, for incitement.
And human and police officers are human too. They're emotional beings like we are, and sometimes they don't make the right decisions. And even though
they get orders,
even though you're a policeman and you're legally allowed to have a pistol on your hip and a taser and pepper spray and all this stuff, you're still an emotional human being. And so prior to the pandemic, the police obey the police. The police are good. The police are.
Well, you do your part, in society.
Yeah,
basically, yeah. If you did your part and everyone did their part, it would be more harmonious. I think that's a view that people share.
Well, yeah, I probably was a little bit blind and naive to think that we can trust the police. Like I knew,
like 100%.
Yeah, like I knew there's a little bit of corruption every now and again, but on the whole, you can trust police and all this kind of stuff. And now it's like, at the end of the day, police have good days and bad days, like we all do, and they may make decisions in certain moments that aren't the right ones, and so they're flawed, and we're all flawed.
Yeah,
and
human.
We're all the process is flawed, and yet we all instill this confidence in a system that we're supposed to follow. But yeah, so I just think the way that I critically think about things more now is way more than what I used to. And that's a transformative change because, 46 years of my life I didn't do that. I just lived my life following rules and assuming a whole lot of things. And now, I will never
bit of wisdom.
I won't live my life like I used to.
You just have questions. Question things.
And it's important.
Sometimes questions have answers that make sense, which is good. Sometimes they don't make sense.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, it's the most important is to question. Don't just...
If it doesn't make sense, yeah.
You have to question it if it doesn't make sense.
Questioning can make change too. Especially if enough people question the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the discussion happens.
Exactly. And, there's certain sort of laws in life that the system has made which make sense. Drinking and driving. We know that if you drink alcohol and you try to operate machinery or a vehicle, then
you're a danger to
you're a
public.
danger to not only yourself but the public. And that's a law that
makes sense.
You can't question that. But then there's other laws that are not quite so clear cut, and it's important that we question those, and we critically think about these things, and just don't settle. And even though we don't think it's entirely right, you've still got to question it.
There's a reason though, yeah. You've got a reason why it doesn't feel right. So to explore that reason is important, because there could be a crack in that idea.
Yes. And there's no perfect human being. I haven't met one yet.
Jesus.
Was Jesus perfect?
No, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know if Jesus was perfect.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's like that whole concept though. It's like in another perspective, it's like everyone's perfect.
We're all perfect.
Yeah.
In our flawed existence. Perfect in our flawed existence.
But who determines flawed?
Yeah.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
That's very human.
Yes.
Perfectly human.
Yes. That's true. That is so true, And it's like, yeah.
But enjoying the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
Always remember to enjoy the journey. That's what I remind myself.
Yeah. The journey is the most important thing. And yeah, as long as you're not hurting another human being.
Yeah.
I think that's important as well. Let's support each other and connect with each other and share our experiences to better our lives as a whole. And life is definitely for me about connecting with human beings on a deeper level. When you have those deeper conversations, you walk away feeling very fulfilled.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's like, because we have all those superficial, like surface conversations with some people maybe.
I'm awkward with that.
Yeah. And it's just, you don't have that fulfillment with those conversations. It's, but yeah, it's, I'm going to walk out today and I'll feel blessed, man, and fulfilled. And, I think we both got to see a raw side of each other. And, I look forward to sharing our experience with my friends from today.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
I think like with those small talk conversations, it's like, that the other person's withholding so much information and only a little bit's coming out, That's what it feels like for me.
And I don't know, I feel like, how did you feel when you authentically expressed to me your why in the moment today? How did that feel for you?
I think I just tapped into where that why exactly is in myself.
Like, it was a natural reaction.
Yeah.
Like, I could just tell.
I'm reminded of it every time, you know?
Yeah.
Anything, like any challenge, I'm reminded, and it
Yeah.
just keeps me going.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, once you establish your why, like all of the distractions and all the clouds kind of just
Part.
go in the back,
Yeah.
you know, into the foreground, and then the why becomes more clearer. But that's also speaking upon like passion too, you know. So it really drives me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see.
For this particular thing that I'm doing here, like, I'm doing it for like that reason.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like people in the future, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, how did it feel for you?
It just felt pure. Like, I felt privileged to be in your presence. Yeah. And I could feel your emotion. It came through your body, out your eyes, and then across the table into me. Yeah, I felt it.
Very special moment.
I felt it. Yeah. I'm a very sort of emotional person as well, and
every human being is, you know.
I'm a crier. I frequently shed tears, and
nothing wrong with that.
No, I think it's important. I think it's really important to be able to just express naturally in the moment the emotion that's there, and you feel better for it. Rather than fight those natural sort of sort of emotional sort of things. You just got to let it out, and
it's part of the venting.
Yeah, and it gets back to, you know, me drawing my wife drawing me. It's like, don't think about it, just do it. Do you know what I mean? Just let the tears flow. Just let the emotions come out. Like, don't think, human, don't overthink of it. Don't overthink it. Just be in the moment and
just allow it to happen.
Allow it to happen, man.
Yeah. That goes for everything. Laughter, happiness, you know,
a
smile,
yeah,
tears. It's all emotions within yourself, you know.
That's right. And I think we can sort of get caught up in our head too much, and we just need to take a step back and just be whatever that may be.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Your why.
Figure out the why.
Figure out your why, and things become clearer.
Things become clearer, man. Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm excited about what the future holds. It's it's going to be some good things happening for the both of us, man. I want to come and see your mural. I want to come.
Oh, yeah? You want to come? We'll go down.
Yeah, we can go and have a look.
What's the time? Oh, yeah. It's still pretty early.
What's the time now?
It's about 1:30.
Yeah.
So we're like 3 hours and 14 minutes into it.
Time just goes.
I still feel like we got like so much to talk about still.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. We could talk for.
I think we could talk for like 12 hours and still be like, maybe we'll just have a break for now.
Yeah.
Save it. We'll save the rest.
Nah. Oh man, it's been good. It's been good reconnecting with you, and
sure, brother.
The first one was groundbreaking for me because I've never shared those deep things about myself with anyone, man. And
I've spoken to some people that like we discussed our conversations too, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it was really helpful for people to see other people share similar circumstances and vulnerability. Yeah. Because we're trying to break down those walls that culturally were put up there, you know?
Exactly. And if you can just help one person, then that's worth it.
Yeah.
It's all worth it.
For sure.
So, and then if that one person can then come out and help, and if they can help one person, it just snowballs.
Compounds, because we help one person, that person helps one person. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. But, yeah, man, we've got to go traveling, man.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm really excited to get back on a plane.
We should plan like an overseas, like a big one. Where do you want to go? You want to go Europe?
I want to go to Europe. Yeah, I want to go to France.
I want to go to Europe too.
Yeah, but there's, like you said, there's so many countries and very accessible. So, man, we just want to take a year off and just do as many as we can.
We'll do podcasts on the way. We'll figure it out.
Bro, how good would that be?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
All right, we'll end it for now, but you definitely have to come back.
Oh, man. I'll look forward to the next one and reconnecting with you and see where you are with see how your creativity has expanded.
Yeah.
And other parts of your life and it's good, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Man,
you're the star of the show.
It's just a privilege. And to see you, see both of us in our raw emotional state, I think it's very special.
Yeah.
It just
we're like documenting our lives,
Yeah.
Capturing these moments, and just candid moments.
And I just think, it's been absolute gold, man, that's come out of today. And I just love how it just goes its own path. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just like...
That's the best.
It's just, we talk about going to the movies on Friday, and then we're talking about cast, and then you're talking about cast, and then it's just the like...
politics.
Yeah.
The pandemic.
I just love... I love the
all the way to what was it, Kofefe?
Yeah, the unpredictability of where
it's
our conversation's going to go. It's the beautiful sort of rawness of it. Yeah, it's just easy, man. Like 3.5 hours is just
it went like that. It feels like we just started.
Yeah, and like there's 1%. There's another 99%. We could do 12 hours of this, man.
Well, we should do like a marathon. I'm just kidding.
Do a 24-hour.
All right, we better end it there because my card's just saying it's full. So
sweet. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. It's been awesome.